Welcome to the Gray Area. The Gray Area Media. We've obligated ourselves to be the voice for all communities, speaking on topics that include community, religion, education, politics, technology, sports, health, and wellness. The Gray Area Media is a platform created by longtime friends for the sole purpose of providing our communities with the ability to voice current, past, and modern-day issues. The Gray Area, in its naming significance, solely speaks to the area in which people shy away from speaking because of media-based constraints or contractual-based obligations. Well, I'm here to tell you, we don't do that here. So please, stay tuned in. We're going to go live in a few minutes. Don't forget, please add us as a friend on Facebook so that you can follow our live feed. And not only that, please add us on Twitter and Instagram at The Gray Area Media. Please visit our website at www.thegrayareamedialive.com. Thank you. Hello, viewers. We are live right now, and this is The Gray Area. This is your boy, Ray E.
This is your boy, P. Wills.
And we have a very, very important, who's is that you? It's not good.
Dose.
It sounds good, though. It sounds real good, though. It's all good. We are talking about a very special thing today in regards to education, the state of education, so many things surrounding education today, and we have some of the best speakers in here today. Ebony Crow is in the building with us, a co-host for The Gray Area. We got Dr. Brandon Cosby.
No.
Okay, this is Brandon Cosby.
Go home right now.
Dr. Sidman
You're gonna be the doctor of education when we get done. We have Rodney Smith in the building.
What up?
And his co-author for the book, The Secrets We Keep from the Youth, Jarrell Shaw, in the building. And my man, Dominic Dorsey. How you doing, man?
Blessed, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you coming
Thank you,
through.
man, for coming, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, let's jump right into it. Well, first, I want to pause real quick and, acknowledge something that happened in the city today. That, I mean, it shook a lot of people, and it's still shaking a lot of people. A young man, Dejon Anderson, passed away today. He was a victim of violence maybe over 2 weeks ago. And he was in the hospital, fighting for his life. So we just want to say our prayers are with the family, Mrs. Krista Anderson, Krista Frazier, his mom. Shouts out to her, and you guys just keep praying for them. Pray for the city. We're trying. There's a lot of things going on in this city. Communities are coming together. People are coming together, and we're really trying to rally together to stop the violence, and we just got to stay consistent, stay on it, and not give up. Don't let these things that continue happening in these communities affect our ability to grow and keep supporting each other. So, the moment of silence for the Anderson family. Thank you, guys. Education is a big deal. We've discussed this last time you were on, Brandon. And one thing that I remember I'll quote you when you say this, and you said that the education system was not broken; it was doing what it was intended to do. And so far, we're at a state where it's still being controlled by the powers that be. And what I'm hoping to do today is to talk more about what we can do individually, in regards to our powers of being human beings in this city, and what powers do we have, what rights do we have, and what can we do individually to get ourselves in a situation where we have more control over our educating our youth.
I'm sorry. that was kind of a question wrapped in a
He threw that right
in a
at you.
quote.
Hey, listen, man. He threw that fastball, but he was like, hold on, man. Did the ball go past my
That
head?
was a little fast.
No, I was like, is that it me? Or
Yeah, that
I
was
quote
that was,
you, it's for you.
Yeah, that was for you because it's kind of picking up where we left off, and we had a nice conversation around those, and we were getting to the bottom of a lot of the stuff that was going on. So, I mean, let's just start where the state of education is today, and what we could do to start attacking some of these things.
Well, the problem is that we have a lot of folks in the community who are working really hard trying to tackle this issue on multiple fronts.
Right.
And any comments or and I tend to take a very hypercritical
Sure.
look at the work in the sense of not from the place of the outcomes we're trying to get, but what in fact is the issue or the problem that you're actually tackling, and is what you're physically doing or what you're intellectually committing to actually putting any direct impact or effort on the issue at hand.
Right.
So if we want to talk about violence and the existence of violence, and the perpetuation of violence by our young people, the real question that you have to ask is, what are the conditions that exist in our community that we are growing killers?
Okay. Right.
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 Right. Because when people say, "Well, we need to stop the violence," the kids need to stop the violence. We need to stop the violence. Well, you can't stop it until you first analyze, this whole foundational component about the fact that we have created a space that takes young, beautiful, inquisitive babies and turn them into killers.
Right.
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 And the reality of it is that what you see happening on the streets is the physical act of what has already been done to our kids emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, right? And so you have to begin to kind of dissect that and dig into that if you want to be able to stop the violence. And you have to understand that, number one, that kids don't kill each other in places where they are respected and valued and they see their own self-worth and value held up and promoted in front of them on a regular basis. Violence among young people does not exist in spaces like that. So the real question then becomes is, why have we failed to adequately create spaces where our kids get validated, where our kids become uplifted, where our kids, really are grown into being able to see their self-worth and thereby being able to see the worth and the capacity of others. And if that's the work that we want to talk about, because that's where the work is. Right. Because the first thing that everybody says when we see these kids on the streets and, oh my gosh, these kids are so smart, they have so much potential, and then in the same breath we talk about the fact that they're killing each other and they're standing on these corners and they're facing certain deaths, but nobody's raising the question about the fact that if these kids are so smart, and let's all agree that they are, right? Right. But okay, so then let's analyze the fact that these very reasonably smart, intelligent human beings are looking at these educational options that are being offered to them and seeing that their best option is to be on the street where people are actively trying to kill them. Right. Because that's a choice. That's an intellectual choice by these people who were reasonably smart and intelligent 30 seconds ago, and then people all of a sudden want to turn around and go, well, no, it's not the institutions, it's not the institutions. Let's blame the families, right? Let's blame their mamas, right? Oh, it's because they ain't in the church, right? It's because, well, everybody needs Jesus. They took prayer out of the school, and then all of us, listen, I've been a principal, I've been a teacher. Jesus and prayer ain't never left school. Any given day you see a test hit the desks, you see kids praying. Right? It's never been gone. That is a false narrative. It's a false conversation to rationalize and to justify inaction. Let's talk about the real fact that we have created institutions and abdicated our power inside those institutions to allow our children to become targets of intellectual, spiritual, and emotional violence. And their behavior is then manifested in physical ways. Dr. Sharon Wilkins, one of my mentors who passed away a couple of years ago, used to say that children will behave in outrageous ways to call attention to outrageous things they're forced to deal with. right? And that's the real question, is that rather than focusing on the violence, why don't we focus on the conversations around what are the conditions that are being created that have normalized this as behavior in our kids? Because that's something we can do about. Right. We can do. There are tangible things that we can take action around those kinds of things.
Right. So you're going back to the home.
No.
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 Okay.
No. Listen, with black kids, all the data and the research shows that regardless of if your kid comes from a wealthy family, a 2-parent home, if they got one mama, if they're living with their grandmothers, anything, that literally the single greatest determining factor in black kids' ability to be successful, as acknowledged by the kids themselves in a study that was done by the Schott Foundation, the single greatest determining factor was whether or not the adults inside those schools believed in them.
That's a good analysis. Wow. So and you guys are all educators, to some capacity. And I want you guys to kind of chime in on this too, because you guys are directly educating. Has the tone and the style of education changed? I'm not going to say since the election, because obviously there's some tension there, obviously. But, is it different for you guys to teach in 2017 as opposed to prior years of teaching?
Rodney.
Go ahead. I don't think so. I love it because with Trump coming in, now all the kids are excited about politics. Now they want to talk about it.
Right. They want to know what's going on.
They want to know what's going on. They want to talk about it. They want to Google it. It's exciting. Now they're interested in economics and politics, and usually they're not so interested in that before Trump.
That's the awakening.
Correct. But to me, I agree with the doctor. The real crazy people are the ones who think we can stick these kids in these social environments that are toxic and expect the kids not to be toxic. Right. The kids are supposed to be rebelling because what we feed in them is toxic. Right. And what do you do when you eat something toxic? You try to get it out of your body. So I'm loving it. He's in class with me every day. He's my TA. I taught him last year. So he gets to see a lot of the students' frustrations with adults in the system who, like the doctor say, don't believe in them. The ones that when I'm in class and I show somebody that they're smart and I tell them that they're smart, they tend to improve in class.
Call him Brandon, not Doctor.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, we're going to start moving furniture. And
His middle name is Brandon. Don't call me Doctor.
Sorry, Brandon.
I looked at him twice when you said Doctor's album. Cut that look, boy.
Jarrell, you're a phenomenal athlete.
Yes, I am.
You are
track. No humility whatsoever.
Yes, I am.
Stay confident. That's what it's all about. Yeah. You're a track runner, 100 meter, 200 meter, 4-time sectional champ in 100 meters.
Yes.
And you're going to Indiana State.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
It's absolutely beautiful.
So what do you, and let me talk to you for a second, being a young mind and being in school. You're a senior?
Yes.
Going to Indiana State next year. How's the tone of education looking for you? Are you getting what you need? Is there some things that you feel like the education system can improve on with you going from high school to college? What are some things that you're seeing that you think could be better?
Well, what I could take to be better is just the basic skills of home and hands-on situations. I typically learn more things on my own. Okay. I research and I read more because of this guy here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like I was talking about, if there is no actual belief in a kid, then he or she is really not going to do anything. This man right here, I've always wanted to be an author. I thought about it constantly, but it never got me to that edge that really did. He was the person that got me to the edge of actually writing a book.
Awesome.
So I give all credit to him about that. But the educational system always can improve. I mean, they're cutting back on things that really should be more into the kid. And they like to make a broad statement like everybody should be the same and everybody should be taught the same way.
Yeah,
when we are all different. We all have different ways of studying. We all have different ways of learning, comprehending things.
Right.
And especially in this type of system, it's completely, I would say, it's white-minded.
Okay.
And it's not for everybody. And some of the things that they took out, like I know the home ed training, or some things like paying bills. I didn't, or like writing a check.
Yeah, personal finance.
I don't know when y'all started writing a check, but I learned how to write a check in elementary school, and that was one of the most basic things, the most interesting things I ever thought that I could ever learn. And they don't teach that anymore. They let that go. Even cursive, they said you would need that in middle school. I mean, once we got to middle school, that was done. So some elementary school teachers, they don't know what kids are really going to be taught in middle school. Middle school teachers don't know what we're going to be taught in high school. So it's not that connection anymore with the teachers when it comes to either extracurricular activities or just academics, period. There is no connection. And I think there needs to be connection with teachers on what they actually need to learn and what the idea of learning will be when you sit into a classroom.
That's awesome. Wow. Jarrell Shaw, running for candidacy 2000.
Run for everything.
2020.
I will do my best.
Be ready.
Taking over everything.
That's good, man. That's awesome, man. And for you to come up here and speak like that, man, that's awesome. Don't give up. And this book, we're gonna talk about it in a little bit. The secrets we keep from the youth. We definitely gonna go dig into that. But I want to hear from Dominique and Ebony. On their, with the state of education today. How they're teaching today. How you guys are teaching in the class.
Well, it's very different for me because I teach in higher ed.
Okay.
So my students are all, 18, 19, 20 years old. They're just exiting high school or they're lamenting over their high school careers, and it's very different. And even from the aspect of I'm a PhD student myself, and then going through and looking at how we are constructing our institutions of higher learning. And I can say the same thing about, K through 12 education. We don't look at student-centered education. We don't look at ways to make it so that the students are benefiting the most from the education that we're trying to get them, to the information we're trying to get them to obtain. It's all about money. It's all about treating kids like commodities.
Right.
Even the ways that we construct our institutions and the policies that we implement, it's about how can we get more dollars in the door as opposed to how can we get more scholars out the door. So, the way that I teach is not necessarily about, who's the president right now or what the educational regime is or what policies have been implemented. Because it's like Mark Twain said, I never let school get in the way of my learning. So it's really about, can we have an honest conversation? Can we get into a point where the information that I'm giving you or the information that I'm trying to get you to, wrap your head around, how is this going to benefit you in your everyday life?
Okay.
The class that I teach is anti-blackness in the U.S. and the Black Lives Matter movement. So we're looking at, school to prison pipeline, educational inequity. We're looking at food insecurity. We're looking at, all of these issues that we see, we touch, we've interacted with, but they don't have any type of name to attach to it. I'm dealing with students, black men and women and individuals who say that they've never seen racism.
Wow.
Did you come up, man, with that class?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, as we're talking about these things, I have students who's like, well, I don't know what racism is. I went to a private school. I had a whole bunch of friends that everybody liked me. And by the end of the class, it's like, it's like that scene in, what is it, CB4, I'm blacker than black and I'm black. They're like, legit. Like, it's like the blackest experience, like completely blacking out.
Right.
Because we're actually discussing these things. Like, we watch 13th, we watch Two Fists Up. We're actually dissecting, Our Prisons Obsolete by Angela Davis. We're dissecting, the new Jim Crow. We're looking at these textbooks and looking at them critically and not just saying, okay, read this and respond and write something, but we sit down and have a conversation. We don't talk to students. We talk at students.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't ask them or try to get them to a place where they can demonstrate their knowledge. We ask them to test to materials that will make the school look good. You know what I mean? This is where we came. So everything that Brandon was saying in terms of giving students an opportunity to feel as though you believe in them. I went from West Lane Middle School being a DNF student in the back of the class that the teachers wouldn't talk to and act like I had no aptitude to go into Forest Manor where the teacher stood with me after class and was like, you're not leaving until you get this. The difference, if you look at those two environments, you talk about Forest Manor Middle School, they ain't had no walls.
Right.
We're in the middle of the hood. Like,
Right.
theoretically, that's the school that shouldn't be doing
Making
anything.
it. Right.
But the teachers invested in us.
Right.
If we didn't have food, they made sure we ate. If our parents were late, they stayed with us.
Right.
In township school, we were just another number. And that's my experience. Now, I don't know if anybody else has the same experience, but I can juxtapose them and say, in those environments where they actually treated us like we had some sense, even when we acted like we didn't, even when they treated us with some type of respect, the act right was different.
Right.
We don't do that no more. So I think that's really the disconnect that's happened. We've started to look at students as, just another number, some more dollars that we're getting in the door, especially if they're counting in all the funding based on attendance.
Right.
Okay, but what did you learn?
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, not can you regurgitate what's on this test, but what can you how can you apply it?
Right.
We don't do that.
Do you feel like and with you saying that, like they're treating them as a number, do you feel like these changes to the policy and what they're doing with the education bill, do you feel like this is assisting in that? Like this is going to be worse because of that?
It ain't gonna get no better.
Right.
It legitimately ain't gonna get no better.
But here's the problem, right? So, whether we talk about it in the context of African rites of passage, we talk about it in terms of demonstrating our capacity to be grown, or we talk about it in terms of demonstrating our competence on an assessment. We have been, and will be tested in some form or another. Right?
Okay.
The problem is that our interpretation of the value of that test to be given priority above all else, right? So, my son, who is an honors student, who's 13, spends, out of 180 days of school, he spends 35 to 45 days testing. Testing. Now, mind you, I don't believe in testing. Google me, I got fired for it, right? Right.
That's a hashtag.
Right. but the interesting thing about it is that he takes those tests because he wants to, right? Because for him now, he is hell-bound and determined. He's like, Dad, listen, I know you don't believe in this, and I know you don't want me to do it, but I'm going to do it because I want to do it, because I'm not going to let anybody think that I can't do it.
Right.
And I need everybody to know I can do it better than
And he
him.
made that choice.
He made that choice
awesome.
when he was 9.
Wow.
Right. That's a full-on conversation at 9 years old that I'm having with this kid. And that's the choice that worked for him. And so now going through it as we talk about it, and he comes home and we debrief and deprogram and talk about whether or not that's really of any value or not. That's the problem, is that when the assessment becomes so incredibly prioritized above all else, right? So then all of a sudden, that if you look, that there's a direct correlation in the increased diagnosis of ADD and ADHD and the increase in prescription medications to control said disorders, as we continually increase the amount of assessments and the stakes and the values of those assessments on kids. So really, what we've done is that we've created an entire medical practice that is based on pacifying our kids to numb them to the drill and kill methodology of making sure that these kids pass these tests and have the ability to sit for hours at a time.
Right.
I mean, when I went into, there was a school that I worked as a consultant for in Detroit. It's an elementary school. It's a K-8 school.
Okay.
The kids didn't get recess in an elementary school. And they go to school from 7:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock.
With no recess.
No recess. 3 English classes, 3 math classes.
Wow.
At first grade, right? Because the whole idea was that, well, we can double up on this and we don't want to take away time and with distractions and things like this. But what you don't understand about adolescents and what you don't understand about babies is they're going to find time to play.
That energy.
Right?
Energy.
Right? They're going to make the time, whether you give it to them or not. They're going to take it.
Your mind just needs a break, period.
Right. Right? Like we as adults would never tolerate
Just
that.
shut off at some point.
Right. But here's the crazy thing. So this is this model that they're doing and they're convinced it's going to work. And I was in the building the day that they got their state test results. 800 kids in this school, and not one kid passed.
Wow.
Not one in the entire school.
That should tell you something right there.
So you're standing here in the middle of all of this where now the teachers are deflated and frustrated because their compensation and their evaluations are based on those scores, right? The kids are deflated and frustrated because now they've been given back this message of failure, right? And then the whole thing, everybody's turning around looking and going, well, why the hell are we doing this?
Right.
If none of it worked anyway, right? And instead of saying, hey, you know what, we need to reconsider this or find a better way or to rethink, no, it was, well, let's do it more, harder, faster, longer. right? Because that's the thing that's and so we've become so preoccupied with this notion of this test and the
Right.
power that we've given to it,
Right.
as opposed to, you know, saying to the kids, and what I always told my students when I was a principal is, listen, don't worry about that test. You will be fine. Right? We are going to be excellent in a number of given things, and your success on that assessment will be a natural byproduct of your intellectual growth and your demonstration of your brilliance.
Yeah.
Right? That's a fundamentally different paradigm shift. You know, instead of holding up this test as the end all be all, wait,
Right.
nope, it's just another thing.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's all it is. And when you devalue it from that place, not to say that it doesn't matter, but it's not everything, right?
Right.
It's a test, one,
Right.
right? That's it. And the kids begin to become intellectually curious and motivated and excited. Then all of a sudden they don't fear it anymore,
Right.
Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you think that because we live in the inner city, we live in the hood, because we're black, because we're brown, because we're poor, we can't do this? I'm going to show you that I can do this,
Right.
and then I'm going to remind you of how well I did it on it and why it still doesn't matter.
There it is. Absolutely.
Wow. You know, I have a
That's great.
question. What do you think, and, you know, whether it's a black kid or white kid or, you know, whatever, it's like the best learning style for most kids or all kids?
It's got to be individual to the kid.
Okay.
I don't think, and Brandon, you're free to disagree with me. Like I said, you've got a different pedigree when it comes to education. But even when you were talking about the number of individuals who are diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, those kids come in my door. I work with students with disabilities. That's my 9 to 5. Teaching is the side gig. I only teach one class. But the rest of the time I'm spending working with students who have been diagnosed with autism, ADHD, ADD, depression, bipolar disorder, all of these different diagnoses. Most of them, they're just students who couldn't, you know, put it together in class. Or they have been labeled as having emotional disturbances or disciplinary issues and things of that nature. Nobody talked to them.
Right.
Nobody worked with them. You know what I mean? It wasn't a situation where we like, kind of like what you were saying, we've put the test on such a high pedestal to where it's like your life is over if you don't pass this.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's one of those, if you do not comply, if you can't get X, Y, and Z together, then you will not survive type thing.
Right.
But we know that some kids learn better in tactile ways. Some kids learn better visually. Some kids learn better audibly.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we don't have multimodal, you know,
Right.
ways of teaching in the classroom. They don't utilize multiple methods at once. It's, you know, this is my teaching style. This is the way that I'm going to teach it, and that's the way that you're going to get it.
Right.
Well, I'm
Right.
saying-
Wow.
And the other part of it is to also recognize that when you build it up and you create that kind of anxiety in kids, you know, like, for example, I mean, I can tell you all to this date, I'm 45 years old, I have never lost the Indy 500. And I have never lost a race to Usain Bolt. Never.
Because you don't run and you don't drive.
Exactly. Exactly. Right?
That's what
And
it is.
and the same principle is held true with kids. When these tests are built up to be so much and it becomes this intimidating and scary thing, well, you know what? If I never take it, then I didn't fail it.
There you
Right.
go.
Right.
Right? And so you then have a significant number of kids who completely disengage from the assessment altogether because it's been so overblown and it's become so intimidating that they don't have to wrestle with the anxiety, the guilt, or the shame, or the embarrassment because they just don't do it at all. Because then if I never tried it, then I don't have to ever deal with whether or not I measured up or I failed it.
Right.
Comfortable with taking an L is what they call it.
Word.
And that's one of the conversations I have to repeatedly tell my students that, you know, have those candid conversations that, you know, this is, it's a tough position as a teacher, you know, because I have to explain to them, you have to take the test. But let me tell you why. Because it's your job to prove to them that they're not what they say you are. Now, does that take away the anxiety or the value of the test? Most of the time, not. But at the same time, unfortunately, that data is used to then provide those services, to provide more psychotropic medications, to label, you know, all of that, you know. And a lot of times, a lot of these tests are actually imposed by the district, and in my opinion, for their own hidden agendas. You know, if I want
Money.
to shut a school down, let me keep sending them benchmark tests.
Right. Right.
So that way I know what the results are going to be. Therefore, I can take these results and this data and say, look at what you're doing. You know, so I try to have those conversations with my students like, look, you don't understand this system and what it's designed to do. I feel the same way about the test. You know, it's to the point now where I do more what in education they call it formative testing, where, you know, I'm testing based off of what I can see and what I know you can do, not necessarily based off of data, you know. And doing that because I know that if you're already inundated with these tests after tests after tests, you know, first of all, a good teacher already knows the ability of a child and their growth and their progression. So, you know, I'm doing more formative testing versus those summative and those other tests that basically give me the data. I have to do them, of course, to some extent, but they already have that they're already getting inundated. So for me to keep giving them tests on tests, what does that do as far as me as an educator? It makes me look, you know, as if like, okay, you're a part of this problem, you know. But at the same time, in a real world situation, you have to be tested even at the collegiate level. So, I mean, it's like a balance. It's almost, I don't know, it's almost like they're being attacked, you know, in this form. But at the same time, this is a system that helps them. But at the same time, it's a system that actually that can actually weaken them to a point to where it can go, the results can go against them. I don't care what your aptitude level is or your academic level, because I have a lot of honor students that fail tests. You know, I mean, I can have a whole 150 eighth graders and only 2 pass the test. I know that's not your ability.
And that brings me to a question of they get great grades all year long.
Oh yeah.
And their ending year grade is relying upon this one test that decides what their GPA is going to be.
Right.
Is that fair?
Well,
I
the
don't give
GPA
tests.
is going to be based off of their
If
passing
you got
and failing
40
the course.
A's and you
But well, the ISTEP isn't based on that doesn't dictate the GPA.
Okay.
Yeah, their credits
Right.
and passing and failing the class dictate. the
Okay.
GPA.
But if 60% of your daily work
Right.
is busy work that is supposedly preparing you for that test,
Right.
Right.
Then it comes right back to, you know, how much of this is necessary,
Right.
or
Right.
real, or
Right.
valid, right?
Right.
And that's the problem with it is that we have taken something that in all practicality really makes sense. We ought to be able to know on any given day whether or not the academic needs of our kids are being adequately met.
Right.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with asking a question like that. That's a valid and fair question.
Right.
The difference between asking that question and then raising the question around what kind of an assessment ought we be using to determine that, right? And then saying, oh, well, by the way, we're also going to use that same assessment to determine whether or not you get to go on to the next grade.
Exactly.
Right.
We're also going to use that same assessment to determine whether or not said teacher has demonstrated a level of competence, to determine whether or not he or she
Evaluation,
Right.
gets a
all that
bonus,
stuff, yeah.
whether or not your contract gets renewed,
Yeah.
whether or not your school gets funding, right? Because then all of a sudden, and I've literally watched this happen, and I've seen professional development people be brought in,
Right.
and say things like, well, basically, what you really want to do if you're really trying to make your school data go up is you need to separate your kids into 2 groups. And these groups that we're going to call them the sinners and the saints.
Wow.
And the sinners are the ones that are going to go to hell no matter what you do for them. So don't bother.
Wow.
Right? And what you really want to do is to find those saints that you got to work with to push them a
the
little bit.
bubble.
So they end up focusing on, they call them bubble
Yeah.
kids, and they focus on these kids in the middle. And the kids over here who are exceptionally bright and exceptionally gifted are also actually being academically undermined because they're not being given anything challenging. Right?
Right.
They're not being given anything that really promotes or pushes their academic development either. So you're teaching to the middle. The kids down here get nothing. The kids up here get nothing. So these kids up here begin to backslide and fall down and then become disruptive.
Yes,
And then
I've
become,
seen it.
and there's nothing more dangerous
seen
in
it.
a school than a bored
Right.
smart kid.
Right.
Nothing.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that. Those usually are the ones that you got to watch out for.
But it's crazy. Like these tests, and Brandon don't give tests. I don't give tests neither. That makes me feel like I'm a very good teacher. But it's one of those situations I've always felt as though tests don't measure how smart you are.
Does not.
They measure how well you study.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's people
Say
who
it
just
all
don't
the time.
study well. You know, and it's just the long and the short of it. But these standardized tests, when you talk about all of these things that hang in the balance based upon your aptitude or how you score on these tests, it just seems like very lazy assessment of not just the students, but of the faculty, of the individuals, and of the school itself.
Right.
Even when we're talking about on a much larger scale, like I said, I'm from an academic realm, and that's higher ed. We've moved from individual teaching methods and teaching to the student and taking an evaluation of the class and where are we, let me readjust my curriculum at this point, to content delivery models, right? So this is the content, this is the product.
Right.
You teach from this, you teach to this, these are the units, you don't deviate from the script.
Okay.
Like no ifs, ands, or buts, or maybes. This is what you work with.
Right.
So if you're in a situation where your kids just aren't getting it and it's time to move from unit 4 to unit 3, do you not stop and make sure that they've got all of the information that they need?
Well,
Do you stop going over times tables because it's time to go to division? I mean,
Right.
like that's really the type of scenario and the situation that we're in. So when you talk about this Saints and Sinners scenario, it's like, okay, 3 of y'all got it. Okay, time to move on. Like, is that really what we're doing?
Right.
Well,
right.
one of the new teacher models, and to Jarrell's point as far as the disconnect, a lot of that disconnect it comes from these new teacher models that come out every year. You know, there's a new way in philosophy and theory on how to teach. That's one of those teacher models, to not move on until everybody's got it or till you hit mastery. So, I mean, it does work if you're using that model, but at the same time, you still got to move on. You know, and then for those students who didn't catch on, we have tutoring, we have this offered and that offered, and which most of the time they're like, I'm not going to that. You know,
But even
So-
still, can't you do? Is there not an and both solution?
Right.
Is my point. So it's like for those who are ready to move on, how can you still make sure that people don't feel as though that they're left behind, but that they're able still to progress and move forward? I mean, I know that's a lot of work on the teacher at some point.
And there's, I
And
mean, you
you want to know what that's called? It's called differentiated
Differentiation,
instruction. And you walk into any good special education teacher's class, and you will see him.
And
or
that's the
her
only
do
place
it.
that I see it.
Right.
That's
because it's-
universal
Well, they have
design.
inclusion in
Because pedagogically, those are the only teachers that are actually trained to do it, right? And they're trained to do it from a place of being able to, to think about it from the place where these kids have deficits, and so you've got kids who are at every level, and so therefore you need to be able to have a plan to be able to reach them differently.
Right.
When in reality, it's not about a deficit.
Right.
That's every single classroom in every single
Yes, it
school across the entire country, right? But because that these are the kids that we kind of view differently, then we will take these different models. When in reality, the really great teacher, think about the teachers that you loved. Think about, and not the ones that you personally loved, but that everybody loved.
Right.
And what is it that they did? They gave every kid in the class what they needed, the way that they
Right.
needed, held them all
Right.
accountable,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like that's what differentiation is.
And
And
just
the
approach them where they were. Like
Right.
legit, like the
Absolutely.
best school that I ever read about was Huey P. Newton School that he had. Like legitimately, there weren't grades. There were kids that were different ages in the same classroom. It was just based upon what they needed.
Right.
Legit, he was just working with you where you are.
Right.
1-on-1 if necessary, 2-on-1 if necessary, what have you. We're just moving throughout. And you mentioned special education. Even when we're looking at universal design, if instructors aren't willing to deviate from their originally planned curriculum, if they don't have alternatives to the curriculum, if they don't have a backup plan, if all they have is what's in their pocket and nothing more, then you're going to have students who are left behind.
Oh, yeah.
Period.
Right.
Right.
Because
Right.
there's no forethought to it.
Well, because the real
Right.
question then becomes is, are you teaching content or are you teaching kids?
right.
Boom.
Right. Right. Because and that was always the thing that I would remind teachers. I mean, and it's fascinating. You can walk into almost any school district in the country. You go to an elementary school and you walk in, you say, "Hi, what do you teach?" And personally, I teach first graders. Right? What do you teach? I teach fourth graders. Right? Walk into any
Right.
middle school or high school in America. What do you teach? Math.
Wow.
What do you teach? Science.
That's real.
Right. So
Wow.
we recognized that in the primary grade levels that we need teachers who are experts in young minds, right? And we somehow think that because when they get to junior high, middle school, or high school, that these are smaller versions of adults. So we neglect
Right.
all of the developmental things that are going on with them, how their brains are still developing, what they cognitively need,
Right.
at different stages, and we abandon all that. And then when they don't meet up, we blame them for it.
Right.
Well, I taught it; they just didn't learn it. No, learning hasn't taken place, and teaching hasn't taken place until there's evidence that learning has taken place. Right? Just because you're talking doesn't mean you're teaching, and that is the reality that so many teachers are also being held hostage. Because mind you, I'm not here to beat up on teachers, right?
Sure.
I'm a teacher, married to a teacher, like, you know, that's what we do. It's a family practice, right? But here's the deal. We've also created an environment where teachers are now put very similar into the same position that doctors are in, right? Like, I hate going to the doctor. Why? Because you'll be sick, something will be wrong with you. Doctor runs some tests. Well, the test came back inconclusive, but we're going to go ahead and write the script. Go ahead and take this, right?
Wow.
Right? When you know good and damn well they don't know what's wrong with you,
Right.
but a doctor is not expected to say, I don't know. Right? And we've fostered environments where teachers are not allowed to say, I don't know. Right? But, well, you're the teacher. What do you mean you don't know? Well, damn, I'm a teacher. It doesn't mean I know everything in the universe, right? And we've taken what they call professional learning communities inside schools, which aren't professional. Very little learning is taking place, and there's no damn community I would ever want to be a part of, right? And then they sit and they talk about the data. We're going to look at the data. We're going to look at the data. We're going to look at the data. We're going to talk about what we're going to do to the kids. We're going to talk about what we're going to do for the kids, what we're going to do with the kids, right? But there's no space in that where if I'm a new teacher, where I get to sit at a table like this with a table full of practitioners who've been in the game for a while and have a great body of knowledge to be able to say, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. To be able to then capture the collective wisdom and guidance of the people around me.
That's true leadership.
There's no safe environment where teachers are allowed to be able to work collaboratively in a way to be able to admit what they don't know, and then when they finally get the courage to admit it, to have a system in place to get them the help that they need so that they can grow and refine their practice.
And why do you think that that's such an Achilles heel for the schools out there? And you know, is it we Dominique touched on this. It said that it's more of a money count. Do you think that these schools move in the way they move because it's a financial gain for them? They just don't have time to slow down and take care of the people who really need the help?
No, it's because, you know, we talk about benchmark assessments.
Right.
We talk about end of year course exams and things like this, when in reality, you know, it's this myth that everybody is bought into, right? Because if you walk in, you want to see a group of high school teachers sweat, let them walk into a classroom with 15 kids who can't read.
Oh boy!
Right? Because secondary education people are not taught how to teach kids how to read. Right? They'll send them to someone else. Oh, well, there's a specialist down the hall that can do that. Oh, well, you need to go for remediation. Oh, you need to go over here, as opposed to recognizing that, no, that is a skill set that I need to be able to have in order to be able to adequately reach my kids.
Right.
So if you walk in and a third of your kids can't read and you can't ship them all out, what does the teacher do? We're just going to keep on teaching. Why? Because we got to meet these benchmark deadlines. Here you are just plowing through material that nobody in the room gets, can read, or understand, and you keep passing out these assessments. Now, mind you, the assessment that the kid gets, they can't read the damn thing, right? So really what all you're really doing is going and creating a paper trail to show that you have been compliant with the so-called expectations. You get to the end of the year, the kids are all failed, and you say, well, I taught it, they didn't learn it, it's their fault, it's not mine because I did what I'm supposed to. When in reality, if you had stopped your curriculum entirely for the first 9 weeks, and said, no, we're not doing anything until we really can begin to build the literacy capacity of everyone in this room. And then we will begin the work. You would see their ability to excel past and get caught up with the time that they lost, and then even be able to exceed it. But that is the kind of practice and the kinds of things that educators are ridiculed for. So when I was a principal, when I opened Shortridge as a high school, I said to my entire staff, if you crack a book the entire first month of school, I will fire you.
Oh boy!
The first 30 days, you better not open a book, nothing. Your job is to know every single kid in this building and to know them well.
That's awesome.
Right? Because you can't teach them if you don't know them.
Right.
You can't design an effective lesson plan unless you actually know who it is that you're preparing, plotting, and planning for. Right? And I was ridiculed by my supervisors for this.
Wow.
This was used as evidence, as a justification for termination, because we wanted to create the conditions in the school where every kid was known well by the adults who were responsible for them.
Right.
That was a problem.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow, man.
And it brings me, to say, and you touched on this, and he touched on this a little bit too. Is kids learn differently, and specifically the African American community, all kids. I mean, not just black kids, but specifically black kids tend to learn different because they're culturally raised differently and come from different backgrounds.
More hands-on.
Yeah. We're more hands-on. So,
Visual.
getting down in the nitty-gritty. But then there's a lot of stuff that you have to deal with when you leave school. It's unfortunate. A lot of single parenting homes, lots of kids becoming the parents of their siblings because mom and dad is at work. So a lot of these things aren't taken into account. And they should really create programs around that. And I spoke on this before about having life skill programs where they acknowledge those things that are happening outside as well as the things that are going on inside the school. A kid can't focus on school if he's hungry. And he knows as soon as he leaves school, he goes home later on that night, he doesn't have a meal to eat. Or he's got to figure out what to get his siblings to eat. Or mom's not going to be home till the morning because she's working third shift. Who's coming to my track meet? I got to get a job to help with mom pay the rent. So many different things. And this stuff is real life. None of these are coming to the conversations when they talk about data. It's all about the data. The data was wrong in the first place. So now the data is the all hail data. Let's move from there. So do you feel like, and any of you guys can speak up on this, do you feel like schools use these help programs like Seek or the programs that assist kids who can't keep up? Do you feel like they use that as a scapegoat to keep their A ratings?
Well, I don't. I mean, here's the problem, right? Is that I don't think that there are these in some cases, but in most cases, there aren't these really nefarious people who are plotting and planning to do these awful things that actually harm and undermine kids.
Sure.
But the flip side of it is that is that the reason that it's hard to get such authentic change inside of school. I won't use the word reform because it's been co-opted by a bunch of asshats who really are doing unspeakable and unethical things to our children as so-called reformers.
Sure.
Right? No, I'm not talking about that. But real authentic change is so hard to get because 90% of the people who work in schools go to work in schools because school worked for them. Right? So it's very hard to kill off what worked for you, right? You're like, no, we need to blow this thing up. You're like, well, but it worked for some. No.
Right.
Kill it.
Right.
Blow it up and build something authentic and new.
Right.
And so the result
that
of it
produces an opportunity to do that.
Right. Because the thing that I would say to people are like, well, we need a good character education program or, we need a program on bullying. Listen, if you run a school and you need a program to come in from the outside, focus on character education, focused on bullying, focused on not leaving, then you suck, right? Because all of that stuff ought to be evident in your pedagogy every single day.
Right.
No, we don't need to celebrate Black History Month. Why? Because if you run in a school, then authentically Black history ought to be present every single day because we Black every day.
Right.
Ain't doing no damn Cinco de Mayo. No. Why? Because my Hispanic and my Latino students ought to be able to see the greatness of their culture reflected in the pedagogical practice that's happening every single day. Ain't doing Women's History Month. We do none of it. Why? Because if we were really authentically about creating a community where young people are elevated, then that's what you do. And the reason that we don't do that is because it's hard.
Okay.
It's messy. And it's time consuming, right? And so schools are configured to operate at the convenience and the efficiency for the adults, as opposed to being able to reconfigure it as an institution that is actually focused on meeting the needs of the kids. There's a researcher. Her name is Dr. Franita Ware. And she coined the term warm demander pedagogy, right? And this is anybody who ever worked in a school with me or saw me in practice, this is what we did. Oh, you had a rough night in the hood? You was up all night? You didn't get any sleep? All right, I'm going to spot you 45 minutes. You can go lay on the floor in my office, grab a pillow, use the couch, knock out.
Right.
But in 45 minutes, your ass is up and you are going to algebra class.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh, You, rough night? Oh, you didn't have anything to eat before you came to school? Cool. I keep a refrigerator and a closet full of snacks fruits, all kinds of stuff. Go grab what you need. Take whatever it is that you need for right now and for later, eat, and then get your ass to class because we got excellence to produce. That you simultaneously do both.
Absolutely.
That you be compassionate, that you be understanding, and you be unreasonably demanding about their academic performance at the same exact time.
But to me, that sounds like he should get terminated because he would empower those students that don't have any power. He would disrupt the system.
Exactly.
It would make all the kids that are not making it make it.
Right.
That means the people that the system is working for now have to compete with those people who have not been competitive. So he got to go. His school can't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
In this social political system, he can't exist. His school can't. He has to go.
Right. Right.
Because those things would be good for all students, and it would make them more competitive. Make them competitive for resources, for jobs. And the system can't have that right now.
Right. Wow.
'Cause what he's saying is, you can ask him, these conversations that he's having, we have in class all the time. Both these gentlemen are right on point, and that's why I've been sitting back enjoying
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, man.
And-
I have a question
Yeah.
because, Brandon, and anyone here could, answer it. But, you mentioned how, there's, lesson plans, but how often do they change, every year? And are they,
Yeah, but he can. Why don't you tell him how much my lesson plans change?
What? Well, okay. From his lessons plans of changing, he changes them all the time for the students so they can understand it.
Okay.
He is a conscious teacher.
Awesome.
Now, when I go to others, they say they teach the same thing they did last year.
Recycle.
The same way.
Wow.
It's completely recycled. The same paper that you may see last year is probably the same paper you might see next year. It's
Wow.
it's a reconfiguration of everything that you pretty much see. Like they have that before school to pretest. They have that about they make you take that at the beginning of the year and then the middle of the year and then the end of the year. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. And it's kind of hard for some teachers to try and change that because when a child comes up to them and asks them, can you change this in a different way? Some teachers don't know how to do that because that's all they know.
Right.
They've never asked anybody else, can I possibly change up
Some
my
are even
method?
offended by
It's
the
like,
question.
well, and then the higher up you go, it's like, well, are you teaching it this way? How many kids are getting it? That's not even the question. Question is, are you meeting the deadlines of the unit, unit 1, unit 2? Are you meeting the deadlines between the weeks? You got unit 1, you have to learn that in 2 weeks. If you don't learn it, oh well.
Wow.
And that's just the method of the teachers. I know in his class that he likes to change it up. He likes to have discussions. Now, he's not the one assigning always these papers out to the children, these tests putting out because those are, from the department that they have to have because
Right.
it's from the same things last year. The same books that we read is from last year.
But you can change how you teach it.
Yeah, you can always change how
Right.
you
Right.
teach it, but most teachers, they don't want to.
Right, because it's comfortable.
I'll give you an example, and it's fresh in my head because the kids that I had this experience with are graduating from college right now.
Wow.
But when they were freshmen, they had this math teacher, who, the kids didn't get it. They're taking algebra. They didn't get it the way he was teaching. They'd get frustrated. He'd get frustrated. They'd ask him to repeat it or to reteach it another way, and he would reteach it the same way, but either slower or louder, or more angrily. And so the kids came to me and they were like, "Mr. Cosby, this is not working, and I'm just, I'm tired of this. They're like, we got to pass this class, but we're not getting it the way we need." And I said, "Then don't go." And they said, "What?" I said, "Leave." What? I said, "Leave. If you all ask him to reteach it and he doesn't do it the way that you want him to do it, leave." All of us? Yep. There's no reason for you to be there if you're not getting what you need. And so about 4 days later, I'm in my office and I hear all these footsteps coming, and you can see them like they're all jazzed up. They're like, "We did it." It's like, "You did what?" They're like, We left. We asked him, and he wouldn't get. We left, and you could tell they hadn't thought about like what was coming after that. They're like, now what? I was like, go hide in my office. So I go stand out in the hall, and about 2 minutes later, the teacher comes tearing around the corner, and he's sweating, and he's like, hey, Mr. C, I said, what's the matter? He said, my kids are gone. I said, what do you mean they're gone? He said, they left. I said, who left? He said, they left, the whole class. They all just got up and left. I said, what happened? He said, well, they were asking questions, and I got frustrated, and they asked me to reteach it, and I did. And I said, did you really reteach it? He was like, well, I gave it to him. I went back over it the same way again. And I said, and then what? He goes, they got mad. He goes, and I turned around, and I was writing on the board, and I looked back, they were gone. And I was like, wow, what are you going to do about that? He's like, I don't know. I said, what's really probably going to piss you off is when you realize that I told him to leave.
Oh.
And he goes, what? I said, yeah. I said, because, I mean, here's the deal. You know, black kids in cities the size of Indianapolis, if they fail algebra the first time they take it, are 1,000 times more likely to die by violence than black kids who pass it. Right. So you're getting frustrated with kids, but you're actually acting as an accessory to murder. And I have a job to protect my kids, so they can't be with you if you can't give them what they need. So I told them to leave. And he was like, so am I fired? I said, not yet.
You got a chance to turn it around.
So I walk into my office, and all the kids are sitting there, and he sits down at the table, and they had the most intense. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my whole career was to see these kids who were engaged in a knockdown, drag-out fight with their teacher about not only what they needed, but how they needed it, and that they were not going to settle for anything else. So and they hated this man. They hated him. But by the end of the year, they became so fiercely protective of him. They loved him. They were tight, and he was kind of geeky, kind of quirky, kind of nerdy. But the kids loved him by the end of the year because they finally broke through, and he understood that the kids weren't asking him to not teach them. They weren't asking him to do less. They were just authentically asking them to think about other ways this can be demonstrated. And then once he did that, they became his most fierce and loyal supporters in the school.
Wow. I want to say something.
Oh, good. Incredible.
Asking students, giving students a voice, it builds it just builds such a good energy and vibe in the classroom. And it also, I mean, it helps teachers don't understand the many strategies, right? It empowers them, but teachers don't realize the many strategies you can use to really help you to teach. You know, a lot of teachers complain that I can't teach. Well, what methods are you using to help you teach? And that method is the student.
Right.
So ask that student, what would you like? You know, like I give my students choices a lot. Do you want to read by yourself? Do we want to read as a group? Do you want me to read? You know,
But
those
notice in all
things.
three of those choices, like reading's happening.
Right.
Right.
And
Like
I teach ELA.
we're not negotiating it.
Right. And I teach ELA, and you know, like Brandon was saying, you know, we have a reading lab. You know, however, you know, we're going to read. We're going to read, and we're going to read above grade level so we can hit these targets. You know, I'm not talking about the standard target, but I'm saying your target because, you know, I want to build you up. So we're reading all the time, and we're reading things, and I want you to struggle and challenge yourself to read it. You know, not just giving you Dick and Jane, but also, Jarrell, I love the fact that you said that Rodney changes the script. And I think a lot of teachers are very scared to do that because, number one, we have a lot of, what do you call them, evaluations, walkthroughs, things like that, where you have people coming in who observe your classroom. You're off script. Wait a minute. That's not what you said you were going to teach today. Or you have a lot of schools are very regimented to where this is the curriculum, this is what you have to stick with, regardless. And they take that literally. I have to stick with this. However, how can you stretch it? You know. So I teach ELA, and that talking about content. You know, we're focused on content a lot, and I'm not saying all teachers are bad teachers, because that is so not true. I know a lot of great teachers. So let's just make that very clear. The system has a lot of great teachers like Rodney, you know. So content, just because you teach ELA does not mean you have to stick with teaching the art of the English language. You know, I'm working on a unit right now called Survival and Disaster Preparedness. Is that ELA? No.
Right.
But I'm going to make it
Channel it
ELA.
in it. Right.
So I try to find all those types of things that actually infuse it into their lives and not focus so much on my content, because they're going to learn how to write. They're going to learn how to read. They're going to learn how to do all those things that you're supposed to be able to function in this Eurocentric educational system. But I also want you to be able to take those real world experiences and apply them, and to be able to take what you learn in this classroom outside. So they have to write an action plan on many different topics, from natural disasters, fire safety, school safety, and an action plan for their community or for their household on this is what we're going to do in the event that this happens. They have to write an essay on a particular topic. They have to bring in go bags. That's the part, this is their final. So they have to bring in go bags of, it's a book bag with, I mean, it could be a book bag, backpack. Survive if you ever need it on the go.
That's awesome.
That's the part of your final. If you don't bring that in, that's 50 points out of 150.
Right.
You know, so
that's awesome, and it's attainable.
And it's
Right,
fun,
right.
and it's practical.
Right, you
But,
know?
like if you are an instructor and you are not trying to create a culture in your classroom or create a community in your classroom, that's part of what all of this is. If you are allowing your students, even with the example that you gave, Brandon, with the example that you gave, they actually take some ownership in their education. The actual output that you'll get is outstanding. Because even in my class, it's like, okay, I know how college students are. I knew how I was when I was a college student. Some of the reading assignments are this thick. Some of them are this thick. I know good and well you didn't read it all the way through. I know good and well you probably didn't understand all of it, because they're very complex concepts. But give me 3 questions over the reading that you didn't understand, and we'll talk about them in class. They get so much more out of those in-class discussions than they do about the readings, and then they're encouraged to go back and say, oh, I missed this. I didn't see that point that you brought up. It's like, okay, so based off this information that we did, how do you want to go forward? Like, you know, legitimately, we're creating the culture as a class. They're essentially leading the discussions. They're leading the teaching. I'm just facilitating. Because, and I told them, I was like, okay, we're going to have writing, we're going to have reading, but I'm not really worried about grading. Legit. Like, I think that's a BS practice anyway. I want to see demonstration of critical thought. I want you to be able to apply.
How do you grade that? How do you grade that?
You know, the funniest thing, I was talking to a friend of mine. She's a nurse practitioner, and she said she wants to go back and teach. I said, you know, they need more black teachers. They need more black folks in the nursing program. She's like, you know what I love about teaching as a nurse? It's all a gut feeling. If I think you're gonna kill somebody, I'm not gonna pass you. Legit, and that's real. Like, if I'm sitting there talking to you on a regular basis, if you're engaged in conversation with your students, if you are actually paying attention, if you're reading what they're submitting, if you're talking to them, if you're actually having conversations where they're responding to what's been gone over, or what you've been talking about in the unit over the reading, like legitimately having a conversation, engagement is completely missed. You know, it's like, okay, I read over this, you know, you got a misspelling word here, you know, this is a period, and like, it's all it's component type stuff. Is there evidence of critical thought? I can ignore if you misspell words if you brought up a point that I didn't even consider. You know, have you put this in a perspective where you taken it beyond even where the reading went, or questioned something that was in there to the point where the author didn't even question that? It's like, okay, well, let me present a juxtaposing position. I want to see those types of evidence. Then I'm like, okay, now you're ready. You're starting to learn things. And there have been class sessions where I just sat back and they just went on a complete tear in a conversation. Back and forth, knock down, drag out conversations. And it's beautiful because they're showing that they're not only interested in the material, but they're thinking about it critically and not just regurgitating what they've been told. That's what's actually empowering. That's what's powerful. If they can do that about something that's deeply personal to them, when we're talking about, you know, the things that are happening in our communities, if we were able to do those same things about the not fun subject matter courses, legitimately, how can you take those same types of classes, how can you take those same types of courses, let students kind of self-direct, kind of give them some authority in the classroom, give them some sense of, you know, I trust you enough to be able to lead these types of discussions, and see how it can manifest. but that doesn't happen. So that's why I'm thankful that I'm able to do it like, don't get me wrong, I have to turn in my syllabus at the beginning of the semester. I have to turn in the syllabus to qualify to be able to teach it. But what it looks like on paper and what we do in the classroom are two very different things.
Okay. Right.
Because
Right.
based upon the students in my class and the culture that we've created, it's like, okay, well, y'all like doing this type of stuff. Okay, let's switch it up a little bit.
Right, right. You've got to know them.
You have to be able to dance
spell
on
them
your
out.
feet, and they trust me, and I trust them, and that creates like they don't want to leave the class. It's
Right.
like, I just took your class last semester. Can I take it again next semester?
Right.
Or they come and see me after the fact. It's like, this is what's going on. You build that type of relationship, and that's where, to me, the learning really happens.
Right.
Elsewhere, if you don't have those types of situations, like what happened in Brandon School, like what happened in Ebony class, what happened, like you sit next to one of your students, right?
And he's here with you.
And he spoke glowing about you. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, you would think you was his pastor.
Right, right.
Like, for real, like, man, nobody better not say nothing bad about my straight. I tell you what, I'm an armor bearer for my
Oh,
life.
yeah.
Man, what's it? But like, legit, like when you have a relationship, when you create a culture of trust in your classroom,
Right.
that's when the learning takes place. It's
Right.
not about assessment, and that assessment is really like that guttural feeling. Have you demonstrated that you're grasping what I'm trying to teach you?
Right, right.
Period. And you'll get that in conversation a whole lot better than you could probably get on a paper pencil test.
Right, right.
Personally.
That's awesome.
I would like to say
Go ahead,
something.
man.
Especially when it comes to like a worksheet, when it comes, and especially community as well. We talked about, a long time ago, like in elementary school, they didn't always send us to the office because they knew your parents.
That's
And if
real.
they knew your parents, and we
Right.
could sit down and have a conversation like the real meetings,
Right.
because most kids don't go to real meetings no more. Mama gotta go work, daddy gotta go work.
Yes.
But if we actually sit down and have a conversation, your child's gonna, you got this situation going on with your child and
Right.
not excelling as high as he should, but we know he can excel
Right.
or she can excel. That child is going to critical think himself or herself to make sure that not only is he doing well in the classroom but also at home.
Right,
Because there
right.
is that connection with the teacher and the parent.
Yeah.
And then especially with these worksheets about when you go down to critical thinking, I know only one teacher in Pike that does it. It's all about what you think. All the questions are what do you think or how do you think.
Right.
You can use any textual support that you can use as long as it's in the book, but it has to be what you think.
Right.
I mean, not everybody reads the same book. That's just a simple fact. Somebody may think a different way when it comes to a certain paragraph or a certain book. And most of the things when it comes to certain books, you can't call up an author and say what he meant about this certain sentence, because most of them are either at home chilling or dead. That's just a fact. You can't call them up, and you ain't gonna turn over in their grave to figure out, hey man, what you just say about this sentence right here? No, you can't do that. So what this teacher does is that he simply says, you can find whatever text or support you can find within this book. It's what you think, and that is the critical thinking of. I think that's how a student excels, because it is what do you think about this text? What about it is elevating your mind to make you think this certain type of way. And I think that's highly important of how a child goes forward, excels, because that child is okay about what they think, as long as they can prove it and they can go back and look, I remember this, or I can quote this exact person, or I can connect it to an outside world thing that happened to me, and I can bring it back to these books. It's what I think. And I think that's highly important.
Wow.
And even if they
incredible.
disagree with you,
Yeah.
even if they disagree with me,
Right.
defend it.
Right, right, right,
You defend
right.
your position.
Right.
Can you make it plain for me? And they be like, I don't agree, but I respect the hell out of your
Right, right.
But that's real. Like,
Right.
because again, you know what I mean? Everybody's not going to agree on the same thing. It's like Facebook.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody's not going to like your status. Somebody's going to be a hater. Somebody's not going to agree with you.
Right.
That's just
You're like,
life.
nah, this is a goat, but
Don't start. Don't start. But no, like legit, but can you defend it? Like, you can make a statement all day long. It's like, okay, but how are you backing it up?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't just say stuff just to be saying it. Just like you don't teach stuff just to be teaching it.
Right.
You know what I mean? What is defensible about that? What is
Right.
defensible about your statement? What is defensible about your opinion on a said topic? Because even if I said, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? It's like, I think it was stupid. Why?
Right,
be
right.
Why? You know what I mean? Like,
Because.
and then pare it down. I ask them why 5 more times, and legitimately get down to the pared down version of why you feel the way that you feel about something.
Right.
Like, that's learning.
That's absolutely. it, but it should have been fun since I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Learning should be fun because you're learning about things you don't know. So it's all about how you teaching it. I just love this conversation because I'm like, man, I wish y'all was my teachers when I was a kid.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Because I learned different. I actually had a teacher, third grade teacher, Mr. Jones. I never forget Mr. Jones.
I'm going to talk about my third grade teacher,
Mr.
too.
Jones. Mr. Jones hated stupid people, and he would let the whole class know. He'd ask a kid a question, and if you didn't know it, he would call you stupid. And then he'd say, I hate stupid kids.
I hate stupid kids.
Man, Mr. Jones is something else.
Man.
And you know, and from that, I hated school for a long time.
Yeah.
You should, because you're not safe there. And I mean, and to that point, I mean, one of the things that I've preached to my kids, all the way from the time when I was a classroom teacher, I was a speech and debate coach, I was a principal. Smart is not something you are. It's something you get, right? And that is part of the problem, is that you get, Mr. Jones who says, I hate stupid kids. I'm like, well, if you got a room full of stupid kids, it's because you're a shitty teacher.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like, well, these kids just don't want to learn. No, dude, they don't want to learn from you.
Right.
And I mean, so I became a principal when I was 27, right? And I had this one teacher who worked for me who drove me nuts because everything he would say, he'd come into my office, he'd be like, well, you can do whatever you want, Mr. Cosby, but this is just backed up by 37 years of experience.
Wow.
Right. And then the next day, it'd be something else, and then the next day, and finally, like, he just caught me wrong one day, and finally I just looked at him and said, Jim, have you really been teaching for 37 years, or have you taught the same year 37 times?
Wow. Wow.
Boom.
Because at some point we've got to be able to move past that. And I bring this whole thing about it, about being a principal up because part of the challenge and the frustration and the danger zone that teachers find themselves in that prevent them from being courageous or free enough to create the kind of environments we're talking about is that if you have a building where bad teaching is going on, it's because you have a building where bad leadership is. Right. That again, Vince Lombardi, Lombardi said, if you are not fired with enthusiasm, you will be fired with enthusiasm. Right?
I like that. I like that.
But to be able to create an environment where you look at your teachers and you say, listen, do not come into my building today unprepared, right? Do not come into this space unwilling to be adventurous and courageous with our kids. And that was not the norm for me through my schooling experience, but I learned it because I got lucky enough to be paired with people very early in my career. Dan Durbin, who was the Indiana Teacher of the Year, he was a National Teacher of the Year runner-up. I mean, brilliant guy, right? Who was also my department chair my first year I got hired. So he comes in to do my first evaluation, and I never forgot this, and it changed completely everything about my approach to working with teachers. He comes in to do my evaluation. I'm nervous, I'm freaking out. I gave the kids a journal entry when the bell rang. I forgot to take attendance. I kind of stumbled through the lesson. We get to the end, and he looks at me and he says, well, Mr. Cosby, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow morning for your evaluation conference. I'm like, great. I moved to Evansville, and I'm going to get fired. I don't know no damn body down here. I signed a year lease, and I'm out of a job. I come in the next morning, and he gives me this evaluation, and I start reading it. And immediately get nervous, like I start sweating. And because it says, when the bell rang, Mr. Cosby immediately had the students take out their journals and begin writing the entry that he had written on the board. I never wrote it on the board. While the students were writing in their journals, he took attendance. I forgot. Right? And then when the discussion for the journals began, Mr. Cosby walked up and down the aisles to engage the students. I didn't. And the more I keep reading, I'm like, oh my God, he is so overworked. He actually put my name on somebody else's evaluation. Like, what am I going to do? And this is literally what and I get to the end of it, and he says, is there something wrong? I said, yeah, kind of. I didn't do this. And he looked at me and he said, I know. He said, but the principal's coming to see you in a week, and you're not going to make a liar out of me. So you will.
Wow.
Right? There you go.
Right? So now I've got this glowing evaluation that the principal is going to read before she comes into my class. And now, all of a sudden, the dude who is the national runner-up teacher of the year, he's he's the golden boy of the whole damn school, has just said that I'm the greatest hire and the perfect person to. And now somebody's coming in to see me be this damn great, and I had 10 days to get ready.
Oh man.
Oh, so now all of a sudden, I'm not working to get better. Just to be able to get better. I'm also working to get better to not make a liar out of him.
Right.
What it also did is it put me at ease because I knew he had my best interest at heart because if he wanted to burn me on the evaluation, he could.
He could have, yeah.
Right? So it was this whole notion of how do you create the conditions to bring out the best in people.
Yeah.
Right? And that when it's always fascinating to me to watch principals say that that's what they want their teachers to do, but they don't do anything like that for their teachers. Right? There's a book, the title of it is that if you don't feed the teachers, they'll eat the children.
Wow.
Right? Right. And it's not about necessarily bringing snacks, but it's about how are you feeding, you know, the environment that your teachers work in? How are you feeding them intellectually? How are you as the building administrator looking at your staff like your classroom? And what's your curricular plan for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year? Right? Because even if you don't have one, there's one in play. Right? So like you are teaching by what you choose to do or what you ignore to do. But it's happening one way or the other.
Wow.
I have another question. I mean, this is powerful, man. A lot of great information. What is your take on charter schools? I mean, are they important? Are they beneficial? I mean, I'm asking anyone.
You ask,
Anyone, right? Anyone touch on that?
I think they kind of just take funding away from the public schools. Other than that, I don't know.
Well, you know, you got some people that say, well, you know, the charter school system is much better than the public school system.
Because they have a little more autonomy.
Okay.
It really depends on who's running the charter school. Though.
That's what I would say.
Like
Yeah, I would
legit,
agree
like
with
you've
him.
got people who are running the charter schools like a business. And that's that same money model that I was talking about beforehand. And then you have people like, you know, Brandon Cosby who are actually running and trying to create an environment where individuals are able to come out of it, you know, better than how they came in. You know, the old phrase, I'm going to give it to you better than how I found it. I'm going to give you your children better than how they came into my office, how they came into my school. I got my best education in public schools. I didn't get that in township. Legit. Like, I don't care, you know, what logo you have on the building. I don't care what uniform that you put me in. At the end of the day, do you have the student's best interest at heart?
Was there experience from the teachers, or like what was the experience that left you feeling that way?
The school was a community, legit. Like, you know, and Forest Manor was a different setup altogether. But even at Tech High School, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a IPS student through and through. I went to 2 township schools in Washington Township, and I went to 2 schools in IPS. And by far and away, my experience in public schools was better. Legitimately, we had that type of culture. We had people that believed in you, instilled in you, and determined to make you better, and would not allow you to do anything less, would not accept anything less. So again, but I had outstanding leadership too.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Dr. Terry Ogle was the principal of Forest Manor Middle School. He did not tolerate anything less than excellence, and that's what he was determined to get out of you, and that's what you would perform at, regardless. So you might get somebody who, you know, and everybody opens a charter school now. You know, it's like 5 or 6 charter schools opening up.
Business, isn't it?
It is a business.
Because, you know, they get to write their own checks.
And then you got people
And
who are
charter
running
schools
these
have-
They
charter-
decide how much they get paid. Sorry.
Government funded.
No, but they run in the
but
charter
they-
school and they don't even live here. You'll have people who are running in the charter school collecting a check and don't even live in the state,
Yes.
don't even go
That's
to the
what
place.
somebody was telling us about How High School is. Some people in Florida.
Charter Schools USA.
Yeah, let me
Yep.
touch on that. I was
By
there.
John and Sherry
Wow.
Page.
So
I
it's
was
like
there.
when you turn your schools into franchises, how can you really have a whole lot of, you know what I mean? Like, and I know people who swear by charter schools. I have a friend, like, when it came time for us to talk about education, one of the pillars of my organization is education. She's like, you know, my son, you know, he got his best education going to a charter school. So there's some people that, you know, different strokes for different folks. But for me, when I'm looking at, there's a system of charter schools where they can have 3 schools come out and they're all under the same brand, and the person who's responsible for it is not here. You know what I mean? They're collecting a check.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, and so here's the thing, right? So, I mean, I obviously, my career is very well documented of working inside public schools, right? But I'm also the co-founder of the very first charter high school in the state, right? there isn't anything wrong with the idea of a charter school. It's not the idea of it, it's the execution.
Okay.
Right. You know, IPS is in a perilous situation and set of circumstances now due to declining enrollment, right? That declining enrollment was happening long before charter schools started.
Right.
Okay, so let's own that, right? And let's be also very clear about the fact that what you also had, and Dom, while you can point to Forest Manor and talk about those wonderful opportunities,
There are schools that did not.
like let's be very clear that you can look at the Indianapolis Public Schools data from 1995 to 2012 and look from 7th grade, follow those kids as a cohort, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and you would see the enrollment of that cohort of kids half itself every year. Right, and then report 100% graduation rate, right? Because what they did was that they graduated 100% of the kids who survived until the first day of their senior year of high school, right?
Wow.
So they kept those kids,
Right.
right? And so there, you know, where there was this desire for schools to fix themselves or to do better, they didn't have to, and they didn't. They knew that malpractice was being committed. They knew kids were not getting what they needed. They knew kids were disappearing. They knew. And until all of a sudden, a model emerged that said, look, y'all ain't the only game in town. Right? Because the moderate to middle income black families who could afford to leave did. And they went to Washington Township and Lawrence and Pike and Wayne, right? They went. And so the folks that didn't necessarily have the financial means to be able to go stayed there. And those folks didn't have a choice, right? And those parents, right? Those parents were confused because the quality of education that they had received prior to DSEG, because here's the thing, we talk about Brown versus the Board of Education is this wonderful day where separate but equal isn't legal. But I'm going to tell you right now, on any given day, if I could have had what Addicts was in its heyday for my kids or for my own educational experience up against going to a completely integrated school, I'm taking Addicts all day, every day.
That's a completely different conversation. I always say integration is the worst thing to happen.
Well, let's talk about
but
that.
understand this. But understand this. But here is the problem, right? So you had a district, leaders, superintendents, board members, they knew that these kids were not getting what they needed, and they didn't do a damn thing about it or bother to fix anything until all of a sudden there was a conduit for those kids to be able to choose to go somewhere else.
Wow.
Right? Wow. And now mind you, where they went wasn't necessarily any better, but it sure as hell couldn't have been any worse. I mean, if you were literally graduating 100% of the 13% of the kids who were left, right? So like, let's not be delusional about the fact that when, you know, the inception of charter schools in the state of Indiana came along, that all the kids were getting exactly what they needed and what they deserved. The problem with it is that rather than looking at the charter model as it being this opportunity to recreate locally controlled community model of schooling, where the school, the teachers, the administrator, the board were locally accessible people, that you introduce these for-profit models like Charter Schools USA, which when you look, they control how, they control manual, and they control Emadonna. If you're a black male and you're enrolled in those schools, the longer you stay enrolled in those schools academically, the worse you perform.
Absolutely.
Wow.
The worse you get worse. And what was the consequence for having that kind of atrocious data? The Indianapolis public school system decided to give them even more schools.
Wow.
Right? So let's be very clear that while we can talk about these for-profit models of charter schooling, Earl Phelan, who runs, you know, all of the Phelan schools here, doesn't live here, right? They're now talking about giving all of the elementary schools in Gary to this man. He currently makes as much, if not more, than the superintendent of IPS, and the dude don't live here. Right?
Wow.
So these are things, and those are dollars that are lining these pockets that are not going into classrooms. They're not going into well-trained and qualified people. That was never what this was intended to be. It became corrupt. It became bastardized, and all of a sudden, what you saw was this effort to wipe out all of the locally controlled models of schools, where actually kids could be met in the fullness of their humanity and had a mutual system of accountability in the community.
Right.
And that's the problem.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rodney.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's exactly what the book is about.
Okay.
What I know about what he was touching on is that very quietly what they're doing now of how it's getting worse is they're putting more preparatory schools into place. And what those technically are is you can go into that school the same amount of time as regular school, but all they give you is packets. Packets of the curriculum. And they allow you to, when you finish this packet, you get a test. And when you get that test, you can get you can keep taking it, but they don't allow you to get either a C or a B or higher. So you can keep taking as long as you want to, but as long as you keep getting that, you can graduate early, as soon as possible. But the thing is that it shows that you graduated from a preparatory school. So when you go out for college, you try to apply for a college. That they don't want to look at that you went to a preparatory college and you may have graduated early. You may have gotten all B's. You may have a straight 3.0, 3.5, but you graduate from a preparatory school. That is not what colleges are looking for. So when kids go down and under of not doing well in these public schools, they take them down to these preparatory schools for them to say, okay, for kids to think that, okay, I'll get to graduate earlier. But they don't understand that preparatory name by their name is completely downgrading them of an opportunity of getting a grant, getting scholarships, because they have to put that information in the computer to get those advantages of money being towards them. It's just putting a child in a situation to where they have to pay for school completely and going into college, into just debt. Pretty much. That's what pretty much public schools are trying to quietly do. I'm realizing that.
Another dynamic about charter schools is going back to the standardized testing is used as a litmus test for other school districts to say this is the standard. So you have XYZ charter school who did very well on this ISTEP test, but you have public school XYZ and township school XYZ didn't do well on the ISTEP, the same one that the charter school took. Well, how can they do it, but you all can? If they could do it, then everybody else should be able to, and this is the model. But what they don't say behind the data is this charter school was able to not accept those low-skilled students. They have all honor students. They don't have special education. So they hide behind that to say that, okay, these schools are underperforming because we have XYZ did excellent on this standardized test. And then another thing, too, with somebody talked about the vouchers. It's a choice. However, what parents don't understand is not really a choice. Because let's go back to XYZ school that had great standardized testing scores. Well, if I have a voucher and I'm an underperforming student, but I have a voucher, I still don't have a choice to use that voucher at the school that I want to go to because I don't qualify. I don't meet the requirements.
Oh, so to get the voucher, you got to qualify for it.
Right, you still have to qualify. You still have to meet the requirements. And even if you get in the door, I can still, because see, in IPS, you can't turn everybody away. In some schools, it's a dumping ground, so to speak. I hate to use those terms, but that's what they say. So, when you get to charter school, even if you make it through the door, I can still kick you out with no problems because I don't answer to a district. I answer to a CEO. I answer to someone who there's no parameters, or I don't have a policy. Actually, all I can say is that's the school policy, and leave it at that.
And and the other part of it is to understand is that, first of all, charter schools are public schools.
Right.
Regardless of how people want to feel about them, they are public schools, right? A voucher, being able to use public tax dollars to send a kid to a private institution, I am fundamentally opposed to on a number of levels. But I mean, more than anything, the misleading part of this is that the voucher system, which is peddled to the black community and peddled to low-income families as a means of access to these great and wonderful schools, first of all, it's not a blank check, right? So if you ain't got nothing, and yes, you can call me on my grammar if you want to, but if you ain't got nothing, and you get half of something, you still don't have enough to go there, right? So, and this is the misleading thing that they do to be able to push this notion of choice in the black community. Don't you want your kids to have the best educational option, right? So if tuition at Cathedral or Brebeuf is 14, 15, 16, 17 grand a year, but my voucher is only worth $8,000, you know, then that means that all I have is half of nothing, right? Because I still can't leverage it and use it in the place where I ideally would want my child to be able to go.
You're expected to pay that other portion.
So what it really became was a means to give a financial kickback to the people who were already paying the tuition to send their kids to these schools to begin with. And they did it on the backs and the hopes and dreams of black folks.
And then guess what happens to that dollar? We talked about the ADM process, since they only have it one time a year now. The money follows the child. So
Explain the ADM real quick.
Basically, it's where they just count up the enrollment of the students, and the property tax dollars, or general fund, right, goes towards the students who are counted for in a seat in a classroom. Every student gets, not of course.
It's what they call count day.
Right.
Yeah, so
every student gets a certain amount of money. Okay, not the student, you know, of course, not literally, but the school gets a certain amount of money per child, and then you can add education, special education benefits, all these other things that go along with it. So let's just say that voucher child makes it into that school, well, and they don't make it. ADM hits, the school keeps the dollars. The school keeps the dollars, the child has left. The child goes to this new school. We only have ADM one time a year. That new school doesn't get any money for that child.
Oh, wow.
That other school got that money for that child.
Wow.
Right.
So.
Right, and and it's this false narrative to say things like, well, don't people have a right to direct their tax dollars where they want to go? Look, you know, if you don't believe in a public education, then don't send your kids there. If you want to pay for a private school, then go ahead. But to make this argument that because I don't want my kids there, then I should be able to take my personal tax dollars and direct them over here. Well, look, my taxes also pay for bridges that I don't drive on. They pay for hospitals that I don't go to. They pay for police officers that I don't trust, right? But and then nobody talking about, well, Brandon, well, wouldn't you like to be able to redirect your dollars so that you can pick and choose the individual police force or officers that you want to support, or the individual bridges or streets that you'd like to see repaired? It's this false narrative that they try to do in order to be able to scapegoat around the conversation about the fact that no, all this is a measure of being able to provide a kickback to people who are already sending their kids there, so that they can provide an even larger gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Wow.
So that the kids who are struggling the most, who have the least, have even less.
Wow.
So do you think that, you know, homeschooling is a benefit at all?
I mean, it's beneficial for the kids or the families that want to make that choice. You know,
if you're qualified enough to do it,
right?
If you know what you're talking about, if you actually can instill something in your child and it's benefiting them, go for it. I'd love for my wife to homeschool my kids. If she gets a good job, I'd love to homeschool them myself.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Again, and even when we breaking down the whole difference between my experience in public schools versus a township school and charter schools and things like that, the bottom line is still, even when you're talking about creating an environment where students feel safe, attitude reflects leadership. You know, who's at the helm?
Right.
That's really what's most important. Who is in charge of rearing those children? Who is in charge of educating those students? That's really what's going to be the litmus test.
Right.
So if you've got somebody in charge of a homeschool environment that's actually good, that their kids are meeting the requirements, they know everything that they're supposed to know for that age group, so on and so forth, great. Go for it. I love it. If it's a charter school that's doing everything that they possibly can for their kids, great. I love it. Same thing. But we've got folks that are skating by. And folks who aren't doing right by these kids. Like, you know, my cousin went to Ben Davis and, you know, played football and wrestling. Can't go to any college in the state because he didn't have the test scores to supplement it.
Man.
He has scholarships, full ride scholarships to go to Big Ten schools.
Right.
Couldn't go because his SAT scores was trash. Why? Because on the day that he was supposed to go have games, the day he's supposed to have meets, he had to come to class.
Wow.
He ain't learned nothing. We fail these kids. You know what I mean? We're not doing right by them. And again, that's the leadership of the school. That was the culture of the school. You know what I mean? Like
The relationship was flawed.
exactly. It was. You know, he's an exemplary kid. You know what I mean? It's not like he was dumb. He could grasp the material. They didn't challenge him. They didn't present it to him in a way that didn't give him any opportunity to learn. If we put these kids in an environment where it's not about them, it's not student-centered, we keep coming back to this concept that it has to be about the students. And when it's not about the students are set up to fail, period.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, these teachers, you know, had. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you know, one of my favorite schools to ever walk into was Central Park East. It was run by a woman. Her name is Deborah Myers. She's kind of viewed as the grandmother of the small school movement. And the banner that hung in the foyer of the school when you walked in said, "It is not my job to make you like me. It is my job to make you strong."
I like that.
Right. And that was the thing that I would always, you know, try to get kids to understand. I'm like, look, you know, I like football. You know, I like basketball. I like any of these things. But you need to understand that I don't give a damn about any of those. You know, if it's in comparison to your academic performance and the options and the opportunities that you're going to have available to you. Right. You know, and to be able to create an environment that says that we will not have a basketball team. Right. If that's what it takes in order for you all to understand that I'm not playing about what my expectations are around your academic performance. Right. Like we will not tolerate it, whether it's, you know, band, choir, speech, debate, drama, basketball, golf, I don't care what it is. Those things can be an extension of your academic opportunities and learning in class. That's why we didn't have extracurricular activities. We had co-curricular activities. Right? Because my expectation of my coaches and my teachers was that everything that you ought to be doing on that field or on those courts ought to be an extension of the fundamental and the foundational principles that we're doing inside the school. Right? Which means that you shouldn't be tolerating anybody being on your team who is failing. And furthermore, there shouldn't even be a conversation about anybody failing any damn where, whether it's in a classroom or on the field, because the fact of the matter is that if we're really talking about elevated excellence, then that ought to be a non-starter to begin with. Right? You know, but are you willing to take the risk? Are you willing to take the heat or the pressure that says, I don't give a damn how many points you score. Right? Like, I will sit you. Forever. Right? You know, until you understand that of what the real end game is here.
We're seeing the remnants of that in sports today. You know, athletes who get millions and millions of dollars by the time that they turn 18, 19 years old, and then they lose it within a couple of years. You know, that's a situation what you're talking about where it's sports over education. Somewhere along the line, the teachers have accepted the fact that this student is a star athlete, so we're just going to kind of sail him through, push him through.
It's not the teachers.
What is it?
It's not the teachers, it's the administrators.
The administrators.
Because it's the administrators who will show up in that teacher's classroom and say, oh, you're really not going to do that, are you? You're really not going to fail that.
You were part of that, right?
Are you going to let your grade be able to hurt the whole team? You're now messing up the opportunities for all the other kids just because
it's
about that money.
This Friday. We really need them on the court for homecoming. We really need, like, legitimately, like, these schools are getting fanfare for their teams being in the state championships.
Yeah, they get money.
They don't care about whether or not, like, legitimately, again, commodities. You know, these are products. You know what I mean? That's how they describe them. A product of how? A product of
Star boy, star girl.
So just this year, I was walking in the hallway, and, you know, I played basketball at Pike. I won their first state championship.
Yeah.
And I ran into my German teacher, and she was with another lady, and she said, oh, yeah, this is Rodney Smith. He played here. He's one of those good guys, you know, ones you didn't have to worry about doing this work. Nowadays, you know, we get special, how does she put it? like he said, the administration coaches us on how to deal with the players now.
Wow.
To make sure, they're not failing. But we didn't have to worry about that with Rodney. So they're right. Like, it's pressure coming from the administration.
Wow.
It is.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
Yeah,
you're
well, it's
student
showing.
first, then an athlete. You're
Right, it's
student
definitely
first,
showing.
Then an athlete.
Yeah. So and let's talk about. We touched on it just a little bit, but desegregation. We've had many conversations about this. You touched on it when you spoke a little bit. And why do you guys feel like desegregation was a bad thing, and how did it affect our community?
You can't legislate morality.
Right.
Plain and simple.
Right.
You can't legislate the belief that black kids can learn.
Right.
Because when you look at and mind you, like I had an amazing experience getting to be the guy that resurrected Shortridge as a high school.
Okay.
Not just because the kids were awesome, because they were. Not just because I got to build an amazing staff, because I did. But historically, like what was reopening the very first high school in the state of Indiana, and like and then the alumni, like Shortridge alum, they're like the mafia. They're everywhere, like everywhere,
Right.
which was a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
But digging into the history, then that means that you're also looking at the racial history of the city, right? And part of that racialized history of the city was that when Shortridge originally opened, it was founded by Abram Shortridge, who came to open a high school to support his friend Ovid Butler, who had started this university that he needed kids to matriculate to. They were both Quakers, so when Shortridge opened, it was both integrated and co-ed. Which was unheard of at that time,
Okay.
right? And then Indiana does what Indiana does when the Ku Klux Klan took control of the legislature and the governor's mansion, and they were like, "Oh, y'all can't go here," so they donated the land to build what was to be called Thomas Jefferson High School. But y'all don't know about Thomas Jefferson High School,
Nope.
but you do know about Crispus Attucks High School, because black folks said, "We'll go, but we're naming our school,"
Right.
and that's how Attucks was born, right?
Wow.
Right? And so Flanner House, shout out to Flanner House, is where I work, is a 119-year history of working with the black community that specifically created the community base for people to be able to go to this school. What they did not anticipate was this educational arms race that emerged, because number one, you had all of these black folks from all over the country who came to teach in a school in all of these various fields, math, science, English, right? Who held PhDs, who couldn't work in their chosen fields, so they came to work in this school to educate generations of kids to kick down the doors that had been closed to them, right?
Right.
Like 98% of the entire staff at Attucks High School held PhDs.
Wow.
Think about it. I mean, it was like it was like baby college, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
So what you then had happen was that of course that the folks at Shortridge were not going to be outdone by the folks at Attucks, and so it created this educational arms race that the Indianapolis Public Schools has a very distinct and it's an amazing bragging point. There was an 11-year history where IPS had the highest acceptance rate of any school district in America for 11 consecutive years. Highest acceptance rate into Ivy League schools.
Wow.
For 11 years, because of the number of phenomenally educated kids that came out of both of those schools. And it was as a result of, well, the white folks weren't going to let the black folks outdo them, right? And so it became back and forth, right?
Yeah, like a seesaw, yeah.
Right. So then Brown v. Board comes down, and they finally issue this, this whole integration plan. So not only did it mean that black kids, were being bused, but black teachers got shipped elsewhere too. Right. So many of those highly educated, highly passionate teachers who were coming to teach black kids about black excellence and empowerment and developed a sense of self-worth and consciousness got shipped away too. Right, and got shipped away to schools where folks didn't necessarily believe that about black kids. And so now you got black kids being put into these environments where the people who were there didn't want them there. And mind you, for the record, the other messed up part of it is that it was a perpetuation of a system of white supremacy. Absolutely. Right? So then, because here's the crazy thing. Attucks, being one of the top high schools in the United States, forget Indiana, they weren't sending white kids there.
Right.
Right? So the busing only went one way,
That's the
right?
whole point.
Let's send the Negroes out because God knows where they are. It isn't any good. When in reality, these kids were being shipped to places that academically weren't on par with where they had come from before. And then on top of that, you're being shipped to a place where people don't want you. They have an inferior opinion about you and automatically believe that you can't learn. And the system is set up as such that you're being shipped so far away that the parents don't have the financial means to even be able to come to the school to participate in programming or to advocate on their behalf or anything. So it literally killed off our entire capacity to be academically engaged as parents, to be supportive of our kids, and to have them in a place where everybody who was inside the school was acting within their best interest.
Right. Wow.
The
Incredible
best
answer.
example I always give my students is like, my son has a fish tank. It's a 55-gallon fish tank.
Okay.
The surefire way to kill a fish is to just drop it in the water. You're not acclimating it at all. You're not preparing the environment for it to be successful. Like if you got a saltwater fish tank, you got to check the pH balance. You got to prepare the environment for the student to be successful.
Right.
You know what I mean? They said, this is integration. We want, better schools for black folks. Well, white schools are better, just like what you were saying. We're just going to transplant them and just drop them into the white schools. Everything is fine. Case closed.
Right.
But again, you have instructors that don't care for black folks. You have fellow students that don't care for black folks. You've dropped them into a hostile environment where they're not being catered to. They're not being told about their excellence in the same way that they would if they were in a black school, if they were in a black community. Everything was not set up in such a way that it was actually preaching or evaluating or creating equity.
Okay.
It was just, let me wash my hands of the situation. They
Right.
didn't create a situation where we were meant to thrive or survive. That's just that it wasn't that type of party. It wasn't that type of situation. So even when we start talking about integration and things of that nature, all they had to do was give us the ability to continue to have excellence in our schools. Give us the ability to continue to have excellence in our communities. Give us the opportunities to do everything that we had been doing, but at the same level as everybody else. Eliminate those barriers, eliminate those deficiencies.
Right.
Let us continually rule our domain, because we talk about Black Wall Street. You know what I mean? We talk about our communities. We had,
Right.
black barbers and black banks and,
Right.
black dentists and all this
Tulsa,
other type of
yeah.
stuff. Now it's like with integration, like, okay, well, we have these things that are so much nicer, just use ours. But in a sense, it started to kill off our ingenuity. It started to kill off our opportunities to do for self. That self-reliance and things of that nature is like, white folks got it already. You don't have to do it anymore. That's not in our best interest. That wasn't to our benefit.
And then we perpetuated it by creating a brain drain within our own communities.
Right.
Because what we kept telling our kids is, listen, you can get your education and you can get up out of here. Right? So we sent our kids away. They went to college, and then when they came back, they didn't come back to the neighborhood to rebuild the community that they grew up in. That community was of enough value and worth to produce you, but you were conditioned to believe that in order to be able to prove that you
had to
really
go
made it,
elsewhere.
you had to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So you go to Brownsburg, you go to Zionsville, you go to Avon, you go to Noblesville, you go to Carmel, you go, you go. And meanwhile, these historically black neighborhoods and communities, are continually dwindling. And so you're not only dwindling in terms of number, you're dwindling in terms of intellectual capacity, you're dwindling in terms of, of generational memory and history. So the black-owned businesses in those areas, they begin to shrink, right? Because they can no longer financially sustain themselves, and in order to be able to stay open, they begin to raise their prices, and the folks in the neighborhood are like, I'm not shopping there. It costs too much. I can go to the big store out there, right? So why do we have food deserts? It's twofold, right? It was economic disinvestment in our community, but we also shot ourselves in the foot because we wanted to shop where the white folks were, so we went. And meanwhile, that same black
Because
store.
it was a privilege to shop where the white folks
Right,
shop.
right. So that same black store that had maintained and sustained your family when you didn't have money to pay for everything, and you got to take your stuff on credit and come back and pay it off later. You left there to go shop elsewhere where folks didn't want you to begin with, and so this business closes. And then those stores that were out there moved even further out, and you don't have the means to get all the way out there, but when you return back here, those businesses are gone. So now you got nothing, and that's how you have the proliferation of food deserts. Right? So and what I say with people all of the time is that, the irony of it all is that black folks were brought to this country against their will to build the agrarian system of the United States, which built the economic system. So for 400 years, we were responsible for feeding the entire country, and in one generation, we lost the ability to feed ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah, and then politics, man, played a part in that too.
Huge.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, we've been brainwashed to just vote Democratic all the time, like
Man.
just constantly. You know what I'm saying? Where, you know, during that time, and you know, my grandparents told me that, you know, there was a time when there was segregation that they voted Republican.
Yeah, because that was when the Republican Party was the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Right, essentially. Yeah.
Right.
The Republicans freed the slaves.
Right, like Lincoln, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But like you, all this stuff builds and ties into each other. You know, you talk about the criminalization of black people.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You talk about the fact that when, you know, even when they had the great migration to the north in the very beginning, you know, our communities were thriving and things of that nature, but they had those deleterious elements of those white communities that they didn't want there. So what did they do? They pushed them out. Where did they push them to? The black communities. So you got the joy houses, you got the liquor houses, you got all of those crime elements that were,
Right.
you know, they were unsanitary for those white communities that they pushed into the black areas.
Right.
So even when you have this integration going on and they're told that, you know, these schools are subpar, they're told these communities are subpar too. So we're also ingraining into our memory, into our the way that we view our own communities is that that's not good enough.
Right.
Right.
So we abandon them because it's like we deserve better, but that's still ours. So instead of saying we're going to take it out, like the same way that we're talking about testing is like, you know, you're going to give me this test and you're assuming that I'm going to do poorly on it, but I'm going to show you and then I'm going to tell you how stupid it was that you gave it to me. Instead of saying, no, this is our community and I'm going to show you how good it can be, how good it was, and we're going to invest in it, we're going to build it up. No, it's like, well, I can do better. I've moved on now. You know what I mean? And we're just now getting to that point where I love to say this, and I'm crossing my fingers saying that, where we're actually starting to be conscious about the absence of a Black Wall Street.
Absolutely.
We're starting to be conscious about the need for community involvement and
Sure.
actually taking ownership of our neighborhoods and things of that
Yep.
nature. Because for the longest part, it's like I was on Brother Nike's show, and he did this whole poll before we went on the air where he was talking about, you know, he just asked Facebook, you know, whether or not people felt like that we were free, we weren't free, or that we would never be free. And the overwhelming majority of people were saying either that we weren't free or that we would never be free. We've developed this sense of hopelessness and this sense of, you know, like just inevitability that, you know, even when I went today, I spoke at Voices. Shout out to Voices, some amazing kids down there. Most of those kids, you know, they're in situations where they got picked up for having drugs on them, that they were fighting with their teachers and all these other type of things. They were doing stuff because they nobody expect anything better of them.
Right.
Like legitimately, they just more or less given up. But nobody asking them any questions like, you know, why did you do that? What is important to you? You know, why? What is really your motivation for doing these things? Like folks just going through the motions because they feel like this is what's going to be. There's
Right.
more folks who are celebrating, at least in these conversations I'm having with these individuals, being released from jail than they are by going to college. Like
Wow.
there's fanfare around this type
Yeah,
of stuff.
absolutely.
So, because they've essentially given up the hope that there's anything better for them in these situations. And for those of us who do have hope, and those of us who have attained something better, trying to go back, that hasn't always been the model because people have said, well, I got mine, you got to get yours.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that bootstrap mentality that, you
Right.
know,
Right.
I got it on my own. Nobody got it for me. I don't need to help you. What I got and how I got it, I don't got to share it with you.
Right.
Right, and the sheer irony of that mentality is, A, it's not true, right?
At all.
Right. Right.
B, it's completely antithetical to the black experience and the African culture from which we come.
Right.
Right? You know, and C, that it is a promotion of an agenda of white supremacy. Right? That the United States perpetuates this mythos of the rugged individual and I gotta get mine and all of this kind of stuff,
Right.
right?
Bullcrap
Like
bootstrap mentality.
Right, right. And what are you gotta pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Well hell, why don't you just first make sure I got boots, number one.
Right.
Or number two, why don't you get this boot off my neck so I can then figure out how to stand up on my own too and work that out, right? But no, but pushing all of that aside, like even when you look back to the basic principles of where we came from, right? The African term, the Swahili term of Ubuntu, right? It literally translated into English means I am because we are, right? It is a collective and shared experience to the benefit of all humanity, right? That in most African cultures, in most, you know, they don't say, how are you, right? That's an individualistic kind of question. The two things that they will ask is, number one, how are the children, right? Because if I'm greeting you and I'm asking you, I can assess how well you're doing by how well the children are doing. Because if the children are not well, we as a community are not well. And then the second one, the phrase that they ask, and my daughter just came home from India, and she talks about that even there, that the question that they would always ask, did you eat? right? Because my concern about you as an individual is not how are you in a good mood, or are you happy? It's do you have enough nourishment to sustain yourself? Because if I'm going to ask this question, I've made a commitment to your well-being. Because if your answer is no, then I will see to it that you do. Right? This collective sense of obligation, you know, and what we've done is that we have perpetuated this rugged individualism to our own detriment. Right, that we bought into this philosophy that we would have never sustained or survived slavery as a people, you know, if that's the way that we really thought. Right, we would have never made it through the civil rights movement if that was a sustained place of thought.
Right.
So when we talk about the place and the plight where we are as black folks right now, like we can talk about institutional racism, we can talk about white privilege, we can talk about a lot of these things.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that if you get in your car on Sunday mornings and you drive back to the neighborhood that you grew up in to go to church, so it's good enough for you to pray there but not to live there,
Right.
I'm gonna talk about you. Right? Because it makes no sense. Don't talk to me about how great the hood is, or how great the community is, or the value in that place, but you don't value it enough to be able to sit down roots and let your intellect and your presence be a gift to the community. Right? Like where we live right now is within 1 mile radius of where my wife has lived her entire life.
Wow.
Right? Because we are committed to our community. We can go live wherever we wanted to go.
Right.
Like, but it is not about that. It's about saying that I choose to be here because there is value here, and that I choose to be here because we're going to make this neighborhood and this community better than where we found it, right? And that our presence, our dollars, our intellect, our support, our community, our model of parenting, what we create as an image of normalcy for this neighborhood and this community is what we put out there as a way of saying this is the place and the kind of work that we ought to be striving to be able to do and to create.
Right.
But to me, that takes, you're talking about creating new habits, a new consciousness, a new psychology, and that takes new training for large groups of people. For example, if we look at Tom Brady or Michael Jordan and their practice habits, if they did not practice, we would not expect them to play at their highest level, would we? So why are we looking at people who are getting a white consciousness in school, graduate from these white schools, and then do the things you suggest? It's not going to happen.
Oh, sure it will. I graduated from White.
That's what
I'm from Newcastle.
But what I
right.
But
Hold
you
up,
would
there's like 6
no. But
black
listen to
folks
my
in
point.
Newcastle.
Listen to my point. My point is we would have more of you if we had schools that did what you suggested and whole communities that do what you suggested.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
Because
But it also requires effort, though.
right,
Like
but
legit, like that's really what it boils down to. Like even if we're talking about this whole asking about we, and we have these conversations about crime. You know, we have this anti-violence rally coming up. You know how difficult it would be for people to commit a crime in your neighborhood or do something that is deleterious or negative in any way, shape, or form. It's like, hey, you know I know your people, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Get out from over there. You know your mama don't.
Right.
We don't do
Absolutely.
that. We went from a neighborhood where it was okay and cool to sit on your front porch and watch the entire neighborhood because that was your
With the door
neighborhood.
open.
With the door open, like all hours of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, outside playing music, what have you, to the point where it's like it's getting dark. We need to get in the house.
Right.
Are the cameras on?
but aren't you
live
still
in the
talking about a
neighborhood.
culture of people doing that?
But it's the effort though.
But
It's-
we have to train. We don't expect athletes to play opposite of how they practice. Why would we expect people to behave opposite the way they've been trained?
But we expect them to put in effort on the court.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But
that's the point.
we have to train them as a youth to behave the way we want them to do as they get older.
I think the point that I'm trying to make is there are environments and there are opportunities that we have, even getting back to this whole education thing, talking about instructors, where you have an opportunity to put forth effort and do more than what is expected of you.
Correct.
And people don't do it.
Right.
Even when something as basic as saying, how are your kids? Or something as basic as saying, have you eaten? We will ignore the signs that are right in our face because it requires effort on our part to actually get engaged or be involved. So when it comes to our community, people will see things that are going on all the time. We had this whole no snitching phenomenon, right? Right? To our chagrin, to our like detriment. Nobody says anything, nobody sees anything. It'll be even smaller than that. You could be in Dollar General and see kids running down the aisleway with their hands just tearing everything up. Throwing a tantrum, having a fit, and you don't say nothing. Why? Because that requires effort and I might get some backlash. Instead of being that community and taking some responsibility and saying, you know what? Your mama taught you better than that. I don't even know your mama, but I know they taught you better than that.
Right. Well, my question is, are you saying these things cannot be taught or that they are taught and these people are not doing it?
I don't think it's something that's necessarily not being taught. We're told these things on a regular basis, but do we adhere to it?
Right.
But okay, so if we go back to the classroom, what do you do when somebody doesn't adhere to it?
But we already have a compliance model. Most of the stuff that's being done in the classroom now is based upon a compliance model. It's like, I'm going to teach this like they were talking about earlier. Well, I taught them the way that I was supposed to be taught.
Right.
I did all my units. That's compliance.
Right.
But effort means, regardless of the compliance piece, I'm going to do more.
Right.
That's the piece that I'm thinking is missing.
I'm asking you, are you saying that these things cannot be trained? Or are you saying people are trained to give extra effort and do these things you're saying, but they just not doing it?
I don't think effort's a matter of training. It's about intestinal fortitude.
Because, for example, like you said, with your own example, if somebody keeps teaching the way you suggest and nobody says anything, why would they change?
But that's okay. So
that's
the disconnect
what I'm
that we're
saying.
saying, the disconnect that we're saying is, I don't believe that you have to teach somebody to put in effort.
But
That's something that's innate in you.
So you don't think somebody could be taught to be lazy? If nobody ever gets on any child or any teacher, why would they change?
Because you're presupposing that the default to the human behavior is laziness.
No, that's what he said.
No,
I'm saying things can be taught whether it's laziness or not, or effort.
What I'm saying is that this notion, and you've used the analogy of like Jordan, those kinds of people. Like, right, practice doesn't make perfect.
Correct.
Perfect practice makes perfect.
Correct.
Right. So then the real conversation is, and where Don says, about this notion of effort, like, and folks who are watching online or listening who know me know things about me. One, I yell at people in movie theaters. You talking?
That's real.
Your kids acting up at the mall, I will put my hands on your children. If you're in the Family Dollar or you in the store running around, I will grab you. And then if your mama's got something to say about it, then she and I can have words and you can go get your daddy or whoever else. I don't care. Not because, I have this very harsh mentality, but it is because of the fact that I have a moral obligation that I do not reserve the right to complain about the condition of this world if I am not willing to invest and create the conditions that I want to see and live by them and practice. And that's that's that part of it is that it says, if I want the world to be this way, then I am obligated to be this way in it, regardless of what it is that anyone else does, regardless of what the reward is or the affirmation or the payoff.
Right, but remember, all of our examples was kids perform better when they have teachers that tell them they're great. You're suggesting that they already know they're great, but they just decided not to do it. Then we wouldn't say we need teachers to do that.
No, I didn't say they already decide. I said that there are systems that are in place that undermine that belief.
Right, that's what I'm arguing.
I believe that 90% of all of the solutions to all of the world's problems rest in the hearts and minds of children.
I agree.
We as adults do an incredibly shitty job of listening and elevating it and practicing what it is that we hear from.
That's what I'm saying. So my argument is, are you saying that I'm wrong that we shouldn't train these things that all of y'all are suggesting? Are you saying we shouldn't have a culture of people teaching these things?
It's the word training that grates on me.
What word would you prefer?
What word would I prefer? Nurture.
Nurture. Wouldn't you agree that we need a culture of people nurturing the way you suggest?
Yep.
That's all I was saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying that the more we think certain things are innate, the more we will not be able to create the results that we want. If we just say, well, they should just do it. Like, don't you think we should nurture that out of them?
And it's not nurturing it out of them.
Or however you want to phrase it.
It's already there.
It is.
Like, that's what I'm saying, is that nurturing means is that you are feeding those elements and those components.
They'll naturally do those things when you feed their inner self.
Like, babies are born intellectually curious, right?
Yes.
Like, you watch them, whether it's gaining the muscular control to be able to take their hand in to reach their face. Watching babies learn how to walk. Like, they look like little drunk people staggering around all of the time. They fall down, they get back up. They fall down, they get back up. But each time they get back up, they're reflecting on why they fell and how they fell and how to not do that again. Right? So it is this very dangerous thing when we then get to a place where we say, well, kids just don't want to learn. That's not true. Right? It isn't that. We have created systems that actually make the act of learning undesirable because it is a place of trauma.
That's what it is.
It's a place of pain. As opposed to saying, how do we create spaces to nurture and to further bring out the greatness that is
Right.
already in
Already
it.
there.
That's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you, aren't you saying we need people to learn how to nurture better?
I think we need to reinforce the qualities that we want to see. So when we're talking about students who are not being told on a regular basis that they're smart or that they're intelligent and things of that nature, when they do things, we're not nurturing them in that way because we're not reinforcing it.
Yeah.
So so behavior is like perfect example. Like what we were talking about is if I don't do it,
Yeah.
then I don't fail. It's being reinforced that I don't have to worry about the failure component by not trying. But if you try something and you succeed and you're rewarded in some way, shape, or form, and again, we're defining what that whole try component is, what that assessment component is. Again, we're instilling in them confidence by reinforcing that you can do things, that you do have the aptitude, that you are smart. That's what's needing to be done. If we get to a position where, regardless of what we're talking about, if we're talking about just being good citizens by being neighbors, if that's been reinforced, then it will continue. But we've gotten to a mindset where, like Brandon was talking about, you put your hand on somebody's kid, they'll mess around and come up to you. Where it used to be back in the day, if you acting up in front of your auntie's house, your cousin's house, whoever down the street, they'll whoop you, take you to your parents' house, and tell them to whoop you too.
It's like running the gauntlet of death trying to make it home.
Legit,
Everybody
legit.
was coming out.
So-
to
So you're saying that
The
needs to
negative-
change, right?
It just needs to be reinforced. We need to reinforce the positive. We need to actually act. That's the effort component that I'm talking about. So in these scenarios where you have an opportunity to do something, say something, you see something, you act upon it, when you know the kids need to be reinforced positively,
Yeah.
we do it, as opposed to just leaving them to their own devices and allowing them to be out of things because it's reinforcing them negatively. You've reinforced now that they don't have to do something, they're getting the result that they want, as opposed to instilling in them and giving them an opportunity to become educated and reinforcing that. There is this want and desire for everyone, that natural curiosity. That's where learning takes place, when you feed that curiosity. When we're talking about creating critical thought, it's them having a curiosity about a specific prompt, about a specific concept, and you feeding into that and saying, tell me more. Just saying, tell me more, saying that I believe in or I'm interested in how you're presenting a topic is reinforcement. We don't reinforce the right way. What we're looking for is compliance. Do this paper and get it back to me and I'll grade it. That's not reinforcing their intellect. That's reinforcing them regurgitating information. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if we're talking about education, if we're talking about being a community, we need to focus on the effort that it takes to reinforce people in the methods that we would like to see demonstrated in our community, that we would like to see demonstrated in education.
And being very clear about it, that I mean, if you look at the Indianapolis Star or Chalkbeat, or most national publications, when they talk about black schools and black learning environments, the things that you will always see them write about in the article is how quiet it is in the halls. You know, whether or not the halls are clear, you know, how green it is.
That's the litmus test.
Right. And one of the things, you know, and I spent 5 years as an educational consultant traveling all over the country, evaluating schools, giving critical feedback. And the first thing that I would do in every school that I walked into, and I still do it to this day, and this is how I knew that I was going to take the job at Flannery House when I walked in for the tours. I walk in and I close my eyes, put my head down and I close my eyes, and just stand there for about 5 minutes. A woman at one school came up to me. She said, "Sir, I've watched you do this a couple of times now." She said, "Are you praying?" And I said, "No, I'm not praying. I'm listening." She said, "What are you listening for?" Joy. Right? That if you really want to know whether or not you are in a space where children are being treated well, right? Where I can tell you about how well the academic performance of the school is without ever looking at a single piece of data, by simply standing in the hallway during a passing period, walking in the school and being able to and listen, and then raising the question about why is it that we as black folks have abdicated our capacity to believe what is possible for our own kids, right? That in black schools and in black communities, we talk about compliance, we talk about control, and we talk about discipline. And the unfortunate thing is that we talk about discipline in the context of punishment, right? So in most urban schools around America, then usually the dean is a black person, right? Because the dean knows how to talk Negro and to kick little Negroes in the butt, right? Like that's normally what it is that you will always see. As opposed to understanding that the term discipline is a root of the word disciple. The word disciple was the practitioner or the follower of the teaching, right? So to discipline a child means to teach them, right? To teach them to follow. It is not about punishment. It is not about submission. And we as black folks have internalized this kind of oppression to the degree to which we talk about discipline, about, boy, I'm going to beat your ass. Or I've had parents come in and bring belts to me and say, listen, if he gets out of line of school, just go ahead and whoop him, right? These kinds of things, as opposed to being able to say, look, like kicking kids in the ass who've been kicked in the ass their whole lives doesn't do anything. Right? But when you can look at kids square in the eye and make them fully know and understand that you love them. Even when they behave in ways that are not really very lovable, and even when they don't love you back, right? That you are worthy of being loved because you exist, not because you're good. Not because you behave or because you're a good athlete or any of those kinds of things, but the sole fact that the presence of you in this building means we are all better because we get to share space with you, right? That, in getting down to how do you replicate and create an environment like that, because in that space, kids don't kill each other.
And just telling them that, just telling them the moment they hit the door that I love you and that you have a purpose here reinforces their desire to come back.
Exactly.
Because I'm going to be missed.
And that's really what it's about. You know what I mean? If you walk into a space, like when I was talking to those kids at Voices today, first time I ever met them, I love you. If nobody's told you this morning, I love you. If you haven't heard it all day, I love you. You mean something to me. And that developed a community just in that space. But just reinforcing the fact that they are valued. If they don't hear it nowhere else, in the classroom, if they feel valued, that's reinforcement. That's community. If we tell people that just because you're my neighbor, that you have value to me, because you're responsible for what goes on in this community, and you have value, then maybe we'll treat each other a little bit differently.
There's a great line from the last poets. It says, our children have become extra large reflections of shattered dreams and broken promises, puffed away in a hail of bullets and gun smoke. Like that's
the truth.
That's that's where we are. Is that and what people don't understand is that you got a kid that's out on the streets. They make the active choice to get away from that environment because it's not emotionally, intellectually, spiritually safe for them. It's a place of trauma, right? If you're raised to believe that you're dangerous in this space because your behavior as a black child has been criminalized from the time you are in first, second, third, fourth grade, right? So now all of a sudden you get old enough to be able to make some choices that you got to get out. And people keep telling you, well, you can't be anything unless you get back in there. Now all of a sudden you're telling me that in order for me to quote unquote make it, I've got to go back into this place of pain, right? So you, who are supposed to be my advocate, are now pushing me to a place that I already know, and there's overwhelming amount of evidence and data to say that that place doesn't mean me well. And you say you love me, but you want me to go back
there.
To that? Right. So now I'm losing on both ends because I'm not getting an education, and I don't fucking trust you because you just tried to send me back to the place that's trying to kill me.
Wow.
And then even if we get back to what was talked when we talked about Dejan at the top of the show, you know what I mean? The school doesn't feel safe. The streets is what, like we're saying, it's just trying to kill you. We talk about get the guns off the street. We got kids who are carrying guns, not for offense, but for defense.
Right.
How do we make the environments that they leave our schools that may or may not be safe to go into safer for them? You know, we don't talk about the environment. We talk about these individuals who are walking around creating the environment as opposed to the environment that's creating these individuals. So if we're talking about reinforcement, if we're talking about the creation of this community where we feel responsible for one another, maybe we can start to change the tide to where individuals don't feel like they have to be armed to walk down the street.
And that brings me to this question. What will it take because we've touched on a lot of great things and a lot of great solutions. I hope that everybody that's listening in is either taking notes or sharing this to somebody that need to hear it, because there's a lot of great solutions that we spoke on tonight. Like, genuinely, if you're a teacher or if you're in education or if you're just in the community, you're trying to figure out kids, this is the segment for you. Because my question now for you guys is, what will it take? Do we have to get back to, we need a couple of black schools to be able to handle this? Get them. What is it going to take in this day and time to get us where we need to get to? Because this system is already rolling, and there's no time to sit and reflect. It's time to create action and go out there and achieve and do these things. So what will it take for us to get these programs in schools in a situation where they respect and understand kids culturally? When they come into their school, they have programs that focus on helping them understand not only themselves, but the environment they come from, and giving them a safe place to learn. How do we get there? What will it take?
I think personally we all need to keep having talks like this, and then afterwards we get together and we help each other implement the solutions that each person wants to implement, because I think we divide ourselves when we say, I got the solution. I got the solution.
Right.
All of them probably are some pretty good solutions. And as long as we have a consciousnness of liberation, then I think we're going in the right direction. I think as soon as we say, I got the answer, then we don't have the answer.
Right.
I would love to see autonomy in schools, but oversight by the community.
Okay.
Like, legitimately, like a school that is ran and has given authority and the ability and the capacity within leadership to say, I know what you're doing in that school. That won't work for my school. What works for my school is built upon the cultural necessity of what's going on there. If my school is in a food desert, you might need programs that are making sure that those kids eat before they start their school day. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a situation where kids need transportation, if kids need money, if kids need schools, like, there are essential necessities that kids need on a regular basis that will directly impact their learning if they are not met.
Right.
Those are not concerns that happen in every school, but those schools need to have the ability and the capacity to even do things that they need to monetarily, or things that they need to do to orchestrate their day that may not look like every other school, with the support and the oversight of the community. If that looks like their tax dollars, if that looks like the time that's spent in the community, if that looks like beautification, what have you. But I think that those types of environments, an environment where the community actually has some input and some buy-in in the success of the school, and the school has the capacity to not be ran roughshod or run under or governed by all these different benchmarks and these tests and things of that nature. No, let's really get down to brass tacks. Are the students learning? Are the students excited about coming to school?
Right.
Are they graduating? What is our retention rate? Not just who makes it to senior year, but from start to finish, the kids that come in or the kids that go out. Those types of statistics, those types of intangibles, the guttural reactions, the real examples of critical thought, and developing people who are ready to be true citizens in our community and in our world. I think those are necessary. And beyond that, I really think that we need to get a point where we stop being so damn scared to talk to one another.
Right. Absolutely.
I think that communication is the sole component, the key component of building community. We can't have any sort of community, whether it's in a classroom or whether we're talking about our neighborhoods. We're neighbors, quote unquote, but we have no community because we don't coalesce. We don't talk. We don't engage with one another.
Right.
Engagement and then seeking understanding in these scenarios is going to be critical to move forward towards anything, because we can come up with policies, we can come up with procedures, but if they're absent of actual communication and input and buy-in from the individuals who they're going to impact, they may as well not even exist. They're not worth the paper they're written on.
That's a good point.
Yeah, before you go, I just wanted to say all of that he talked about is in this book.
Right.
I swear.
The secrets.
It's on
you
Amazon.
keep
It's
from
on
the youth.
eBay. It's at Walden Books.
The secrets we keep from the youth. Go ahead, Ebony.
And the strange thing is the Indiana's building level administrative standards, which is basically the standards that a building leader should actually go by, is heavily focused on community and relationships. And I think a lot of administrators actually get away from that because they're so focused on the politics, and they're a lot of times being
Are they
forced
forced
to
to
focus
for-
on
right,
the
right.
politics. So just for building leadership, just to really focus on that community and put more, because the thing is the community will back you. Regardless of if you're doing right by their children, doing right by schools, the community will back you in your efforts. I just happen to work under a leader who goes against the grain all the time. And she got the community to back her in the things and the decisions that she makes because she's brave enough to do that. So I just wanted to throw that out there that actually is the standard for building leaders too. And this is, I don't know if this is something new that they just implemented within the past few years, but it's something that is the focus is community and parental relationships too, along with that community. And then also I wanted to add, I think we have a lot of discussions, and I almost made a Facebook post this morning to say I'm tired of talking. I'm tired of discussions. Can we just start doing? I've been in discussions for a decade now. It's
Sure.
like we know we have the solutions, but it's all about coming together and putting aside egos
Right.
on, like you were saying. Everybody has a solution. Everything is a good solution because we have several layers to this onion. So everybody has a solution. It's just coming together. But also, I truly believe that we need to start asking the people that deal with young people on the regular and a daily on what can we do. A lot of people are experts on what to do with youth. They don't even touch them. They barely even see them. But I rarely hear people talking about talking to teachers.
Okay.
Talking, going into schools. Why are we having these dialogues and town hall meetings in schools with parents, with teachers and students, and asking what can we do? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Everything is outside of the school system when you're saying, what can we do with youth? Well, why don't you go and ask the people that work with them directly instead of you trying to solve the problem, and we still are at the same point we were a decade ago when I was having these conversations.
Right. Right.
So,
Ain't no money and glory.
Yeah.
in collaboration.
right.
Yeah, I was
you know what
gonna
I'm saying? So I'm like, can you ask a teacher? And I always try to, comment, and I try to put it out there. Hey, here we are. Ask us what we can do. We deal with these students
Right.
all day, every day. We know. We deal with the parents. School leaders, they deal with the parents and the students. So reach out to a teacher and ask. If you really want to help, ask us what you can do.
Here it is, Mr. Oh, go ahead.
What I think would pretty much have to be included with relationships and community is love. And the idea that all of you as teachers care about the students, about the well-being of a student, that is love and compassion. And what I know about being a student and a student athlete is that when you have somebody of an authority and they don't have the appreciation of the athlete or the student at hand, and the child gets that, they see that from the teacher, they see it from the coach, it trickles down to the fact that if they don't care, then I ain't gotta care. And if they don't show me no love, then I'm not gonna show love to my peers. I'm not gonna show love to myself. It goes to when I talk to a fellow student. We always talk about, again, when I talked before about taking an L. It should be more of, instead of having the mindset of, I'm going to go ahead and take this L for this test, it should be, well, I'm not going to take this L for this test, and you shouldn't take this L for this test. We should both try and study together.
Right.
We should both try and figure this out together. We should both go actually to the teacher that does care about our well-being and our thought process and our grades, that has our grade in our hands, to actually go after school and actually want to know, okay, what can I do to get this test? Not the second or third time, but the first time. So I ain't got to take it no more. What do I have to do to not even ask you for extra credit? Because I know, for one, that you are a teacher. You're a human being. You're not a robot that actually just knows one simple thing of a curriculum. You have other lives. You may have children. You may have grown folks that's dying. You have people around you that are treating you even wrong. The reason that you might be in a bad mood because somebody called you out your name. We may not know that as students. So for teachers and for students, we have to understand that love and connection with one another, and also with the parents, again, with the connection. We all, as one, have to have the best at heart for either the child and the parent and the teacher. Because one thing of an I love you can simply go very, very far for that person's day. That could be the best part of a person's day. That could actually lift somebody up to being, oh man, I'm gonna fail this test too. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and stretch this test out because I know I can do this because somebody loves me, because somebody knows that I have the mindset, I have the urgency, and I have the capacity to write down on this test what I think and not what I just comprehended or what I just studied, last night from all that I've learned over time with my teacher and with my parent. So I think relationships, community, and love definitely need to be taught within the schools.
There it is. Shout 2021. Shout 2021.
Definitely. I mean,
Mr. Cosby.
and I think that, it just went down. Okay, there it is. Cornel West, once wrote that justice is what love looks like in public. Right? Justice is what love looks like in public. And so when we talk about, all of these different things of like, what can we do? Like, first of all, define what success means, right? Is it passing tests? Is it getting diplomas? Because the question that I would raise to people is, so great. So if you got a kid who passes, whatever state test that they need to, they get their high school diploma,
Right.
but they become the most notorious drug dealer the city has ever seen. Have we done our job?
Yeah, right.
Right? So it's not about teaching kids to count. It's about teaching them to be counted on. Right?
Right.
It's not about how far our kids go. It's how they go far. Right? That really digging into it and saying that by the time a young person leaves our school, to be able to go off to do whatever it is that they want to do with their life, college, work, whatever, what are the things that we expect them to be able to know? What do we expect them to be able to do? And what do we expect them to be able to understand? And then to be able to look at our daily practice and ask ourselves, where is the evidence that those are the things that we're teaching?
Right.
Right? Because if
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't have your daily practice committed to what the end is supposed to be, you're just going to get there by dumb luck or hope or happenstance,
Right.
as opposed to being very rigorous and intentional in your practice. I mean, I had somebody, throws shade at me, on a Facebook comment about a year or two ago because somebody asked me if I would come and be a part of one of those high five rallies.
Right.
And then what I said then is what I'll say now. I have no problem with any of the brothers that have shown up and done that or any of those things. None. Right? If that's what you want to do, you want to show up and give kids love that day, that's great. But as a former principal who struggled with making sure that my kids had people who cared about them and loved them, would I rather have one day 100 black men standing out in front of my building high-fiving kids for an hour? Or would I rather have one black man every day for 100 days for an hour inside my school doing real work with my
Right.
kids?
Yes.
Right.
That's it right there.
And
Absolutely.
And those are the kinds of things where I try to really push people to be very intentional and tangible and outcome oriented in your practice. Well, we're going to do this
Right.
because this is going to raise the kids' self-esteem. Okay, what's that evidence by?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right? I'm not talking about what you think. I'm not talking about what you feel, but what can you prove? Can you show me evidence or data that by doing that, it will then have this outcome
Right.
or this impact? Because if we can't, while it's a very cool thing to do, it's not necessarily achieving or accomplishing this thing that we're saying over here. And then after everybody's gone, then you got these little black faces walking in that building still catching hell by adults who don't mean them well.
Right.
Right? And that's what I'm saying is that we have to be very intentional with outcome and then designing course of action that actually gets us to that. And if it doesn't, then to begin to raise really serious questions about, well, why are we doing it? Because is this really about the kids or is this about you?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And really challenging every single part of our work and our practice every single day with that, so that our kids not only not only get the benefit of having people who are compassionate and who care about them and remind them that they're valued and that they're loved, but people need to remember that children cannot learn to use their minds well if they're not around adults who do.
Right. All right. Good point.
You know,
Good point.
And that's that for me in the most simplistic and tangible, actionable way is what I think we need to be doing.
That's awesome. I just want to thank you guys for coming out. I
Yeah,
want to, we're going to do closing remarks because we don't want Facebook to kick us off. They tend to do that when we stay on too long. But what I want you guys to individually do is just go over some of the things that you're working on right now. I know all you guys have something awesome, you know, with the food desert and the don't sleep movement. You got your book coming out. So you guys just speak to the viewers a little bit about that, and then we'll close out. Start with you, Don.
Well, again, I'm the president of an organization called Don't Sleep. Don't Sleep is an acronym. It stands for Deconstructing Oppression Now through Solidarity, Liberation, Equity, Empowerment, and Perseverance. We are a intersectional organization created to do work within the Black Lives Matter movement, the movement for Black Lives, dismantling systems. So when we're talking about the events and things that we have, they are designed to address one of our pillars. They're designed to address and deconstruct systems of oppression. We have a variety of events coming up. Recently, we were reached out to by Dejon Anderson's mother to help with a rally, and this was, you know, while he was still fighting. He fought for his life for 11 days. But they really wanted to do something to raise the awareness and actually seek some solutions. We do a lot of talking about what to talk about in terms of the violence in our city, but wanted to present an opportunity to bring individuals together who had solutions, but also to highlight the youth and allow them an opportunity to speak to the issues. So that event is going to be on June 3rd from 12 to 2. We're going to have an anti-violence rally where, again, we're highlighting the youth. Since, you know, Dejon recently passed, obviously today, his mother was slated to speak. If she still feels led to do so, if she still feels up to speaking, she is one of our key speakers for that event. But that's one of those events that we have coming up here soon. We have a number of events we do regularly in terms of, we have Operation Care Kit, where we provide 150 packages with bus passes, toothpaste, shampoo, sandwiches, chips, snacks, and things of that nature. We just prepare them, keep them in our cars for when we run into our fellow siblings here in the city who are experiencing homelessness.
Sure.
We also do ongoing, we have an event coming up at Flanner House. This will be the second time that we've done it. This will be the second annual Black-owned business block party. We have 116 Black-owned businesses that are going to be on hand at the Flanner House. And it's not just, you know, jewelry vendors. It's not just people selling purses. It's individuals. Like, we have Black-owned dentists. We have Black-owned optometrists, lawyers. We have Black food truck vendors. And the whole expressed purpose behind it is that we keep talking about this Black Wall Street. We have people in our community, like, people don't know there's 72 Black authors, 73 if we count my man and you know, my friends over here, you know, that they're Black authors here in the city. There's a Black-owned bookstore in the city. You know what I mean?
Didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right over in Washington
That's
Square.
where the book release party is.
Yeah,
Nice.
Mila Salon's bookstore. We're actually going to have an event there on June 9th where we're going to do our first Don't Sleep Storyteller series, highlighting Black authors in the community. That's why when you say, I got a book, it's like, all right, cool, we can do that too. So, again, just having an opportunity to say, not only are we going to patronize these Black-owned businesses for a day, but we're going to commit to supporting them ongoing.
Absolutely.
And not only that, having those Black-owned businesses with the mindset that, okay, now I have a business, I'm a sole proprietorship. How can I really turn this into a business where I'm not only making money, but I'm actually creating jobs for other individuals?
Right.
If you got a job and you ain't hiring nobody, that's a hustle. It's not really an employment opportunity.
Right.
It's not a job. It's not a business. So really getting into that mindset. We're consistently in communication with IMPD. We have a list of demands where we're trying to increase the amount of training. Currently, there's more firearms and weapons training than there is in any type of training around cultural competency. Obviously, any type of crisis intervention training. There's a lot of changes that need to be made within IMPD in terms of their training. It's antiquated. I think they know that, but they're just looking for some input from the community, and we're more than willing to provide that, so to speak. So we have a whole lot of things going on. There's always things going on all throughout the month of August. You know, we always got something going on. If you go to our website, naptowndon'tsleep.org, you can see everything that we have going on. Shout out to everybody in my organization, my VP, Satuel. Brandon Randall told me to tell y'all what's up as well. You know, Hanson and everybody else, Star.
Awesome.
Just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that there is an organization out here who is working. Oop, I think we got kicked. Oh, no, there we go. We're out here working for you and willing to work with you. So appreciate everybody. Appreciate y'all having me on the show.
Yeah, thank you, man. And
Yeah, man, thank you, man, for coming.
We'd be
man.
willing to bring Dijon's mom in here,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
speak on that as well. You know, just to let people know, you know, everything that's going on and some prevention methods, you know, from what you guys do at the rally. So,
Absolutely.
Rodney.
All right, I'm really
Jarrell.
into economic empowerment as well. I was at your event, the Black Business Block Party. I brought some of my students out there, and they were marketing their business out there.
Awesome.
One of them was customizing shoes.
Yes, that's
yeah,
him.
I remember him.
Yeah, I made a video about it and posted it and
Yep,
everything.
yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm working with Jermaine Dearman. He's having a Indie Hoop Fest 3-on-3 tournament July 8th and 9th at Lucas Oil Stadiums, 3 age groups.
Shout out to JD.
Yeah, shout out to JD. Ages 8 to 9, 10 to 12, and 13 years and older. Me and him, we have a company called Power. It's built on providing marketing service, branding, event promotion. We have this book coming out. It's at
Show the book.
Malia Solange.
Show the book.
Thank you. It's at the Black-owned bookstore in Washington Square this Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. And then Saturday, me and another one of my students are partnering up, and we're having a free barbecue at Northwest Way Park from 6 to 9. Even if it rains, we're going to be out there giving out free food.
Nice.
And this is, again, me and
People
the
like free
students.
food.
Yeah. So Northwest Way Park, 6 to 9 Saturday, book release party at Malia Solange Bookstore at Washington Square, Friday, 6 to 9.
Awesome.
What's been going on, of course, you know, I don't know if anybody really actually cares. June 1st is the state championship.
Absolutely.
I am the state champion. I'm just there to go and prove it. That's
When is
all.
this? I'm coming to see this.
June
I gotta
1st
see this.
at IU.
Okay.
This is not lack
I mean,
confidence.
besides this book, we do have another book on hold right now called Bridging the Gap. It's just another branch off of this, and I have another book that I am writing with one of my counselors because
That's
she
a
likes
nice
to
title
motivate.
too, by the way.
Yeah, she likes to motivate other kids. It's called Simply Motivation, and we both understand that the concept of a community is everything, but it also understanding the temple of self,
Right.
and you have to get yourself together before you can inspire other people.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
the book Simply Motivation, of course, is going to be behind Power, and it's going to drop just like this, and it's going to be just as big as this. And I thank y'all so much for allowing me to be in such a capacity as wonderful minds as this, and a very wonderful
Absolutely.
set.
Thank you for
This
coming,
right here
man.
can compete with anybody on a radio show.
Absolutely.
Anybody. I guarantee it.
Appreciate that, brother.
You just recorded your voice for a drop.
Yes. This is how we drop. This play's going to drop. All right? This play's going to... It's one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. This is a dream to be in a room with these.
Thank you.
This much amazing mind and feedback, and just like a community, y'all have shaped me, and I thank y'all so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, man.
Appreciate that, man.
Hey, we gonna follow you, brother.
you.
For sure. If you anything you got going on, just let us know. You know, you're the co-author of this book.
Yes.
So you know, Rodney Smith. Y'all see that? Rodney Smith and Jarrell Shaw. Right there at the bottom. My hand covering it up. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Make sure you post that, man. But yes, Dr. Cosby. I'm sorry.
Brandon.
Brandon Cosby.
doctor.
He gonna body slam me. He gonna body slam me before we get up out of here.
You know, I just completed my first year as the executive director of Flannery House.
Congratulations. Awesome.
It's a beautiful history, 119 years of serving the black community. Next year's our 120th anniversary.
Nice.
So we're going to be doing some really exciting things in the upcoming year to promote that celebration. You know, it is, with all of the programming that we have, we literally have everything from literally cradle to grave services. So, you know,
Wow.
the nation's very first child development center was actually at Flanner House. Or
Wow.
Early Childhood
Wow.
Center. We were just approved last week by the state to begin taking 1-year-olds. So we have one all the way up to preschool, all the way up to 5.
Y'all hear that?
Within the next year, we'll be taking infants.
That's big.
So, you know, really being able to create a space where our kids are nurtured and grown and supported and valued, so that they are given that foundation they need to go wherever.
That's dope.
Before and after care programs, summer camp for kids between the ages of 5 to 13. So if folks, you know, are looking for a place to have their kids for the summer, we'd love to have them.
This summer?
This summer. I'm one of these people that I think that one of the saddest things is our kids have lost the ability to play.
Right.
And so our summer camp is really not focused on academics. It's focused on you getting to go to camp and have fun at summer. So
Absolutely.
our kids play in the park. They go swimming. They get to go do kids stuff. We have 30 bikes where we teach the kids. IMPD actually works with us on bicycle safety and teaching the kids how to ride bikes. So shout out to Matt Grimes from IMPD with everything that he does for the Northwest community.
Absolutely.
But our Center for Working Families job training, the third Thursday of every month, we hold a job fair from 1 to 3. We had about 300 people show up for our last one. We've had over 100 people gain employment in the last 4 months of doing this job fair. We only bring potential employers who are willing to hire people that have a criminal history.
Nice.
Not everybody in the neighborhood does, but anybody in the neighborhood who does, it doesn't get turned away. So, you know, one of the big things that's happening that we've probably gotten the most coverage for is the farm. You know, so building the largest urban farm in the city, in the middle of the largest food desert in the entire state of Indiana. Matt Davis is our farmer in residence, and Matt, you know, is doing some amazing
He tricked
stuff.
me into digging a trench the other day.
Yeah, man, because he'll do that. He'll do that. That's
Come take a walk with me real quick.
Diplomat Davis, he get you out there, and then all of a sudden, but when folks need to understand that this is not a garden we're talking about. I mean, they put 1,000 tomato plants in the ground. On
Unbelievable.
Tuesday. So
That's
we
awesome.
are talking sustainable production.
Man, y'all gonna feed the neighborhoods.
That we're gonna sell local organic produce for cheaper than what you can buy conventional
awesome.
produce.
We need
in
some.
any
March is
store.
closing. We need
So
some.
you're talking, you know, 50 to 60 cents a pound for tomatoes. You know, we're literally, so it's not just about access; it's about affordability, and really making sure that folks have the options that they deserve. In the coming year, we're going to build a micro grocery store, kind of like a bodega. With all this conversation around the city, with Marsh's, you know, the stores closing and everything, that Indianapolis likes to think of itself as a metropolitan city, but if we're really going to be one, then we need to start acting like one.
Absolutely.
Folks that live in
So
Chicago
agree.
and New York and places like that, they don't go to big box grocery stores, you know, and power shop for 2 weeks. You go to the store every 2 or 3 days, you get what you need, and you go back because you know it's going to be there. So that's the model of the store that we're actually going to build and open on site on our campus in the course of the next year.
Wow.
And we also created a program called FEED, and it's Farming, Education, Employment, and Distribution. So
Nice.
young people between the ages of 16 to 24 who are not enrolled in school, who have a criminal history, we have the means to be able to get you trained, both as a farmer, to help you get your culinary arts certification, to help you get your high school equivalency, and for you to be able to learn supply chaining and food distribution so that you can either create your own restaurant, you are then equipped with the skills to be able to go work in the top restaurants in the city, and we actually have the means to be able to cover cost of living, child support, court costs, transportation, any of those things, so that you can be fully engaged and present. So we're still taking applications for young people who are interested in participating in that program. Really, for us, it's about, you know, it is about, like, our mission is to help people in our community move from instability to self-reliance and self-sustainability.
Absolutely.
And so we create a number of avenues and opportunities for people to be able to do that the way that they want, so they can have the lives that they deserve.
Wow, that's incredible. And this is and the things that you stated are what a lot of the churches should be doing.
Yeah.
They said they should be doing. So, you know, but man, let me know when Flanner House gets stocked. I'm putting my money up. That thing is gonna grow fast, man. I mean, and the remarkable thing about that is that, you know, what you're doing is creating a standard. and it's a standard that people are going to have to follow. They don't have a choice but to follow.
One of the most dangerous things that's happened to us as Black folks is that we have been taught our history as mythology, that it was so unique and special that it happened right here, or God made this very special, unique thing happen this once. And so what it does is it disempowers us because we think that it was so unique or special that it was a miracle that it happened.
Right.
Our goal is to prove that this kind of work is replicable.
Absolutely.
Right? So all of the things that I'm talking about doing at Flanner House are things that Flanner House has historically done. None of this is new.
Nice.
This is us reaching back and looking at the work that our elders and our ancestors did and bringing it forward and making sure that we stay grounded and connected with that work and proving that it can be replicated anywhere throughout the community and making sure that folks know how to do it in the context of their own community.
Right.
It doesn't have to look the same way on the east side as it does at Flanner House.
Right.
It doesn't have to look that way on the south side. But there are some fundamental operational components that we're happy to work with folks to show and to teach them by having partners like Brandywine Creek Farms. Shout out to John Lawler and his wife Amanda for everything that they're doing, in Hancock County. So we're committed to growing, 30,000 pounds of produce on our site, and Brandywine's committed to bringing another 60,000 pounds in from the outside, right? And that's a partnership that is a model with a guy who has dedicated his career as a farmer to fighting in food insecurity in neighborhoods and communities like ours.
Nice. That's beautiful. Wow. I didn't know you guys were doing all that.
Come by.
That is awesome.
Come by.
We got to
Come
come
on.
by, man.
We got some more trenches to dig. Come by.
Hey man, next time I'm not gonna wear my jacket. He ain't give me no notice or nothing. But y'all do expungements over there too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
So not
folks
only
don't know that.
part of the mythology about some of our folks who've been in the criminal justice system, and they think that they're going to be always obligated to check that box, that we can work with you to be able to establish that positive work history. And if you've had that positive work history and we can create the records, the courts take our testimony as as
Oh,
evidence
wow,
to
man, that's
contribute,
huge.
That's
so that
beautiful.
we can get records expunged and then turn around and help you find gainful employment in the places to be able to make it competitive and a
that's
living
huge.
wage.
One of the main reasons why we wanted to partner with Flanner House in terms of like when I went there, I had been in this community, grew up in this community, didn't even know what Flanner House was, what they did, and all that other stuff. So we wanted to partner there for no other reason so that people could say, this is where Flanner House is, this is what Flanner House does. And this is before they built the farm.
Gotcha.
Right?
Right,
This is
yeah.
before all this other type of stuff. This is before Brandon Cosby came in and Brandon Cosby the joint. So legit. So now that they've seen the Flanner House and what Flanner House can do, hopefully there is opportunities for other, places, because this is not an ego thing. This is a community thing. There's other community centers throughout the city that can do the exact same type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like legitimately use them as the model and figure out a way
Absolutely.
to do the work to make sure that the community is well taken care of.
And there are agencies that are doing beautiful stuff.
Absolutely.
With everything that Patrice Duckett is doing up at the Faber Card Center.
Yeah, we partner with them
You,
too.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that Krista Morehouse with Pitt Thompson and the work that he's doing, Allison Luthi at the Martin Luther King Center, the Bonner Center with JT and everything there are so many different things that are being done that a lot of times, if you didn't grow up within the immediate area of that institution or those services, folks forget that, or they just simply
Have no
don't
clue.
know that those kinds of resources are immediately available to you, to be able to, where you can refer people for assistance or help. I mean, we're one of the few agencies, we actually have, a representative from the Child Support Division of the Prosecutor's Office in our building every day.
Wow.
So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that, that are available, but is generationally sometimes not commuted or handed down, so that folks will, grow up in an entire community and they'll be like, wait a minute, y'all have been doing what? For how
Right.
long? By who? I mean, most people don't know that Flanner House was actually founded by Frank Flanner of Flanner Buchanan. Most people think that the
funeral.
Flanner guy was like, was a black dude. No, he's a white guy, right? But what he did was he reached out to Booker T. Washington to help him design and create this place that was going to be a place of empowerment for black folks.
Nice.
So we actually have a living living institution that was co-created and collaborated on by Booker T. Washington.
Wow.
Right? And
That's
so to be
incredible.
able to be a part of that living history every day is amazing.
That's incredible. And hopefully we can assist in helping
Yeah,
get that out
absolutely.
there, because the reason we created this platform is because there's not enough media circuits to expose these kind of programs and the greatness that's going on in the communities. So we're glad to be a part of this for sure. Ebony.
Besides teaching, which takes up a lot of my energy and time, I'm working on my admin license to be a building leader. I'll be done in July. Also working with organizations, shout out to Voices, helping them with curriculum, infusing curriculum from, the education world into nonprofit sectors and, helping them to kind of bridge that gap. So doing that. Also am helping with an event July 1st at Douglas Park. And it's a bike ride and a peace rally, July 1st. And I'm going to actually put the flyer up on my Facebook page.
Okay.
Here, I'll do that tonight. And basically the purpose is we'll have vendors and we have keynote speakers, we have talent, just basically to lock arms, because it's called Locking Arms. Just to bring the community together, whatever your religion is. And it's basically based off of a model that the Nation of Islam uses. Also, shout out to Sister Raquel Muhammad, because it's actually her brainchild. The Nation of Islam, one of the mosques in Compton, one of the ministers basically locked arms with the Christian community. And they have this huge rally every year where they have like hundreds of bike riders that'll ride throughout the city, and they all come together, and it's just just everybody in the community coming together in one single place. And, just making efforts to restore peace into the community.
Nice.
So again, that's Douglas. Also, I have an organization, Seed to Save. It's a 501c3, and I actually stopped doing a lot of work with that because teaching became my main focus. And I said, okay, this is my program. But I'm actually restructuring it to where I'm doing less events and more partnering with other people and helping other people foster, what they're trying to do in their ideas. And,
Absolutely. Collaboration.
Doing that, so.
That's good. It's awesome.
You did? Oh, yeah. That did my logo and my website. You sure did.
Nice. P. Wills.
Hey, listen, man, this has been a privilege, man, to have, you guys here, man. And, man, I salute you, bro. I'm glad that, we finally met. If you, like Ray said, man, if you need us to support anything, man, we're here.
Let us know.
Cuzzo, man, proud of you, baby. Your book, man, I'm going to read it, and, enjoy it. Don't you find it funny that our great-granddad is pretty much doing, he was doing, the same things that we're doing?
Crazy.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. My young man right here, man, I salute you too, man. Don't let anyone ever take your confidence, man. I don't care if people say, oh, man, you're cocky or you're arrogant. Look, stay
There's a
that
vibe.
way.
There's nobody taking this.
Thank you.
They don't know you.
I believe there is a universal presence. So
Absolutely.
as long as
Absolutely,
if I
man.
visualize, if I can step into my dream vividly, vividly, it's gonna come true. Period.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely,
Black
man.
Ricky Bobby.
And keep that, man.
Wake up
Winner.
in the morning and I piss excellence. Nobody can hang on.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Hey, man, keep that, man. Seriously, because,
For sure.
listen, there will be people that are like, I mean, you really think that you can do that? I mean, and they'll try to plant those seeds of doubt, man. Big bro, love you, dog. Sorry, man, that I thought that I had talked to you in the first place.
Down when we're off the air. It's going down.
Oh, man, it's been a privilege, man. Listen, I was at Short Ridge, man, when I saw this man work. And the impact that he had on that school was, unbelievable. I was happy, man, to go there every day. Just to sit in his office and just listen to him and just see, the interactions that he had with all the students and the respect that they had for him. You could see it and, feel it. You could see it in their eyes, man. It was powerful, man. It was, kind of like Joe Clark, but he hates Joe Clark. That's another thing. But anyway, yeah, man. But, as he said again, we're here for you, man. So anything that we can do, and we really need to visit the Flanner House. I mean, I've been saying that, man, for a very long time, but we need to do that. Like we're not too busy, man, to make it there.
Yeah.
But listen, I will say this, man. Of everything, man, that we've all said, love is important, and when we look at our neighbor, man, we should see ourselves and understand that everyone is connected. So when we start knowing that and really believing that and feeling that way, everything will shift, man. Everything will shift. Like how you said, if you see a kid, acting up, you would put your hand on them because that kid is actually affecting you to the point where you want to discipline them and correct them and put them in, and just lead them in that right direction. If we all did that with each other, man, the world would be totally different. So, just when you see, people, man, just visualize yourself, period.
Yeah. Man, I'm blown away always. Everything is a learning experience for me. I meet new people. It's my first time meeting you. I've seen Facebook things going on, and I love it. I love all the stuff that I see you doing. And it's my first time actually getting to sit in front of you and hear you speak. And I mean, I just loved it. I love, Rodney, man, you came on the show, killed it, absolutely killed it last time you were here. Now you got a book out, and you're just continuing to improve and grow. And you got this young man right here that I'm so impressed with.
Absolutely.
Shout out 2021. You know what I'm saying? He's definitely going to be running for some political office somewhere. Look, he's confident. He going to be president of everything.
He reminds me of Nigel.
Yeah, but man, I love it, man. I love the confidence. I love that you're in here speaking well with adults. You're definitely ahead of your time, and just keep planting those seeds with the people that are around you, the friends that you have. Absolutely. Just whatever you're doing, give it to them. It's going to rub off. Stick with what you know, because that's where you're comfortable, and people are going to follow you because of that.
Absolutely.
So don't ever feel like you got to follow somebody else or do anything else. Always learn, because even the best leaders are students, But just make sure that you don't let anybody take that away from you. Just like he said. And Brandon Cosby, I ain't gonna call you doctor. You know what I'm saying? I had to think about that long before
Listen, man, I call him Big Bro, man. Listen, I just call him Big Bro.
Yeah. You always come in here, man, and educate us, man. And I find myself often, like, a lot of this time, I'm just listening. And this is what the world needs to do. So hopefully the viewers out there have just gotten so much of this. We say go share it. Watch it again. I know I'm going to watch it 3 or 4 times. I always do, because I love the dialogue and love learning and progressing and getting better. And
absolutely.
You guys definitely do that. Thanks for coming.
And shout out, man, to Ebony. Hold on, man.
Yeah. Ebony, big shout out. Ebony's our co-host, and she's just always in here with us. Just what I'm saying, the best ever. Reliable. You know what I'm saying? You can't find reliable people no more.
Yeah,
but
man.
Ebony is great, man, and she's educated, and she's doing her thing as well. So, and one thing I want to say to the fellas out there, man, we have to continue uplifting our queens, and just keep holding them up. There's so much negativity out there. Unfortunately, Facebook has found a way to downgrade, the queens out there, and we just can't let that. We can't let them win. So just continue uplifting, and we know what the real true story is. We see it at home every single day. So whatever you're seeing out there, just disregard it. And also to our viewers, wow, we have some faithful viewers.
Absolutely.
You guys always tune in with us, rock with us. Just come along for the ride. You share our feeds. We're growing really, really fast, and we can only thank you guys for doing that, because this is something that's necessary for our community, and we need to. This is the only way we can reach more and more and more people. So thanks for tuning in with us. We got a special person coming next week. You got something else?
I was going to say, when y'all go by Flanner House, the entire month of June, we're doing Toys for Tamir. We're collecting toys and toiletries and baby clothes and things of that nature, all in memory of Tamir Rice. He would have been 15 years old on June 25th.
That's awesome.
And all of the materials and things that we're collecting is being donated to the Children's Bureau and to the Julian Center. So they have, on average, about 50 kids at the Julian Center.
Baby clothes, you said?
Dope.
Baby clothes, books, shoes, toiletries,
Nice.
baby wipes, all that type of stuff. So bring that. Flanner House is one of of our partners at one of our donation sites, so they'll be available
Nice.
for you to drop it off during business hours. I just dropped off the box today. I just wanted to make sure I
Okay.
brought it out.
So we can come anytime. Okay.
That's good.
Wow, Pat, you always say this. We all connected, and it's always, no matter who
are.
we bring in here, it's always somebody connected to somebody in some
It
kind
is,
of
man.
way.
I mean,
It
we
just
are,
comes
man.
full circle, and we
It's
have
a-
to take advantage of that. We have to start collaborating, like Ebony. She said, "Look, I'm not going to do my own. I'm going to collaborate with those who are already doing it, because maybe the skills that I have, I can help benefit those services, and that's what we
vice
need
versa,
to do. Yeah, vice versa. So, thanks for rocking with us. We're gonna see y'all. We got a very nice, and I'm not gonna let the cat out the bag this time. We got somebody coming Tuesday. I think y'all gonna appreciate it. So, just be looking out for that notification. Thanks for rocking with us. Peace.
Peace.
Welcome to the Gray Area. The Gray Area Media. We've obligated ourselves to be the voice for all communities, speaking on topics that include community, religion, education, politics, technology, sports, health, and wellness. The Gray Area Media is a platform created by longtime friends for the sole purpose of providing our communities with the ability to voice current, past, and modern-day issues. The Gray Area, in its naming significance, solely speaks to the area in which people shy away from speaking because of media-based constraints or contractual-based obligations. Well, I'm here to tell you, we don't do that here. So please, stay tuned in. We're going to go live in a few minutes. Don't forget, please add us as a friend on Facebook so that you can follow our live feed. And not only that, please add us on Twitter and Instagram at The Gray Area Media. Please visit our website at www.thegrayareamedialive.com. Thank you.